Each of us responded to our trauma differently. Danny became self-sufficient. Adrian got into self-help. Marilyn married up and buried her head in the sand. Heather got high. Julia went activist. Me, I learned how to protect myself.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, greetings and welcome to the We Read Books podcast, folks. Ooh. Here we read books and then we talk about them for mostly our entertainment, but we really hope that you're also enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, blessings all around.
Right.
Sorry, I'm hydrating. I feel like I haven't drank enough water today.
Me either.
It's probably not true. Probably drink like 40 gallons, but it's a weird phenomena whenever you drink a shit ton of water and then you just feel so thirsty. What is that about?
You and Emily both are just such water drinkers. You would feel like a desert if you drank as much water as I drink. And it's probably the source of several of my problems, but I'm just not thirsty very often.
Yeah.
Or, you know, water just, my brain's like, ugh, so boring. But I don't like those water flavorants either because they have a weird taste. Mm-hmm. Or they have like those fake sugars and then those give me a migraine. So,
yeah.
But I have to like mentally tell myself, oh, girl, you haven't drank any water today, and it's 11 a.m. Get over there and drink some water.
By 11 a.m., I have consumed so many liquids, it's not even funny.
Right.
Like, half a pot of coffee, easy, and probably one whole, like, tumbler, like 32 ounces.
I think my brain just gets so hyper-focused that after I feed my gurgling hungry belly because I pop my eyes open hungry. Other than that, my body is like, okay, focus. But
Yeah.
and yeah, it's not usually, usually I drink something before 11 a.m. But there are days where all I've had are coffee. And then I'm like, oh, H2O would probably be beneficial as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, the well-hydrated woman across from me, that is Mad.
And our dehydrated woman is a Whit.
Just call me the Sahara Desert.
Sahara. Hey, Sahara.
That's what I meant.
Oh,
goodness.
Okay. Oh, we have some social channels that you can visit. Instagram and TikTok are both at We Read Books Pod. And our email is wereadbookspod23@gmail.com.
Woohoo!
Yay!
I was trying to think what because we've been watching Parks and Rec, and it's that episode where they go on that radio show.
Crazy Ira and the douche.
Yeah. I was trying to think of one of their sound effects that they make, but I didn't think of it fast enough, but they're also probably all wildly inappropriate.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Those are really, like, funny episodes when they go on that radio show. Any of the episodes where they're on the show is really funny.
Right. But yeah, I was like, ooh, maybe I could think of a good soundbite from there. And then I was like, ooh, maybe not.
Yeah, they're all, like, fart noises.
Right. Oh, gosh. Well, today we are talking about The Final Girl Support Group, written by Grady Hendrix.
That's right. Do you think that's his real last name?
I don't know. And I did read the little blurb in the back, but I don't remember. I mean, normally they don't say, hey, this is my pen name.
Yeah. Right.
But it's possible, though it does sound like it was made to sound cool, so you never know. Some people are lucky.
Some people are lucky. Whenever I encounter a last name with an X in it, I feel like it might not be their real last name.
Just not common enough for you.
No, like outside of Mandarin Chinese and native Chinese surnames have X's, but they like have a totally different function in the Chinese language, obviously. But yeah, not very many Caucasian names end in X.
Okay, good to know.
So,
I mean, the only Hendrix I know is Jimi Hendrix, so.
yeah, and I don't think that was his real name.
We're just, you can just make names up.
Totally. I mean, I would write under a pen name too.
Why didn't we do that for the podcast?
Oh my God, we could have made up our own names.
We could have sounded even cooler than we already do.
If I was going to choose a stage name, what would it be? What would I choose? I don't know. It would not be anything like outrageous.
Yeah.
I'd pick like Amelia or Genevieve. I don't know.
Francesca.
Francesca. I actually knew someone named Francesca from Italy.
Nice.
She was a foreign exchange student who stayed with my Aunt Mary while I was a senior in high school. So she came to like Christmas and stuff. And she was very nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, her being from Italy, like a name like Francesca makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
Not to say that you can't be born in America named Francesca. It's just uncommon. Or
Right.
if you are named that, then you're automatically going to have like a nickname like Frankie or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
No one's going to take the full effort to call you Francesca.
Right. But if you're from Italy, your name is Francesca.
Yeah.
Like, obviously. No, she's very cool.
Awesome.
And I think my Aunt Mary and my cousin Hannah, who's like 2 years older than me, I think, still stay in contact with her and have gone and visited her in Italy.
That's
So,
super cool.
super cool, yeah.
Shout out to Francesca.
I wish I would have been a foreign exchange student.
Yeah.
Mom, God.
I'd say it'd be cool to have a pen pal, but this book kind of makes
Yikes.
you maybe think twice.
Yeah. I think I did have a pen pal from Brazil, maybe?
That's
I think
pretty
it was
neat.
like 3rd or 4th grade probably, but it was through school, so
That's pretty cool.
they didn't have like my home address or anything.
It's pretty terrible. My brain went, were your letters really going to Brazil or were they just...
At the school. At the other 3rd grade class.
Yeah. It's a conspiracy theory. No, I'm sure your pen pal was real. And I mean, when they talked about their life, surely they were being genuine. It wasn't some
Hopefully.
kid like,
I mean, I don't know.
today we have an assignment, like 3 doors down from yours. You're going to write as if you live in Brazil. Okay, go.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember nothing about the pen pal, to be frank. But I know I had one, and I'm pretty sure they were Brazilian. I don't know. Maybe not. Who knows?
I did not mean to just ruin that.
When you're 8 years old, you just kind of,
Right.
believe shit. Or maybe I made it up. Maybe I'm crazy. Just like
Shout out to Mad's pen pal from Brazil. We believe in you.
You were real.
You are real.
Okay. So our author is Grady Hendrix, as we've said. This novel is pretty new. Mm-hmm. It was published July 13th, 2021.
I'm trying to remember, is it the newest or most recent or...
No, The Love Match.
The Love Match, that's
was
right.
This year.
Wow.
I think when we recorded it, since we pre-recorded so many, when we pre-recorded that, there weren't even really reviews on Goodreads yet.
We grabbed that one hot off the presses.
Yeah, we did. But I think this is a close second.
Nice.
What's funny is whenever obviously we're going to talk about this being an adaptation later, but I think this was picked up in at the end of July 2021 by HBO to be adapted.
And that's crazy to me because we couldn't find how many copies were sold. So and when I saw it, I have no concept of how popular it is. I just thought it was ooh, that book sounds cool. Mm-hmm. Especially for my movie interests and stuff. So I was that seems neat. But, normally if yes, it says New York Times bestseller, but usually, you know, if it's like a big deal, it's got, you know, like 5 stickers on it ruining the cover and all that jazz. But that's crazy to me that we can't find how many copies are sold, but it already has a TV deal.
Yeah.
So
it seemed a little odd to me, to be honest. I don't know if maybe he pitched the idea of the show before the book was released and they were going based off manuscript and the popularity of his previous works.
I would guess yes.
But that still seems strange to me. Like, what if that particular story just didn't hit?
Yeah. True. Very true.
Because that happens.
Because, like, the back of the book, you know, talks about some of the other books that he's written and stuff. And there was another one that it said ongoing talks for a television show, you know, but no date is set yet or whatever. So maybe it was sort of like hey, if you pick this up, I've also got this one in the works. And they were like, ooh, yeah, let's grab that one too. You know, so, but I don't know anything about his other works as well. I hadn't heard of them until I read them in the back of this book. So
yeah, so I was very surprised to see how soon after this was released that it was picked up. But I did have another spot of book news on the third book in the Legendborn series.
Oh, do tell.
But it's the title. The title was released, and I have forgotten it because I'm terrible.
You are very far from terrible, my friend.
Legendborn Oathbound is going to be book 3. Oathbound.
Very appropriate.
So, let's see if they have a release date listed here. Expected publication, January 1st, 2025.
Okay.
So.
I mean, I got to get to reading the second one.
I know, me too.
I couldn't remember if you had read it yet or not.
I have not. I do have the audiobook, but I just want to read like the physical book. Although I did really enjoy, I listened to the audiobook right before we recorded because I had already read the physical book before that. And I did like the narrator, who I assume is going to be doing the second one.
You would hope so.
When I saw January 1st, I was about to be really excited. And then I was like, oh, that's a 5. So, got about a year and some change for that one.
Right. Sorry, I was thinking about, you know, you guys know Maddie's deep dismay for Winds of Winter. And I was watching this movie the other day, Logan Lucky, and it's such a fun movie. And they have a scene where these prisoners are holding guards hostage, and one of the things that they're requesting is Winds of Winter and what is the other one?
A Dream of Spring.
To be added to their library. And the warden is trying to explain to them, you know, they're not out yet. And the guy is just like, that's not possible. And it's an argument back and forth. And it's so amazing. And I was just like, yes, Maddie needs to know about this.
It was a really funny video and also depressing.
Because that movie was made a few years ago, and the problem is still current.
It's an ongoing issue. It's also really funny because whenever I was still working at your current place of employment, Carl and I would have this conversation like once a week, and he's like, "It's never getting published, so you should just start believing that it's never going to happen and forget about it." And I was like, Carl, no. Like,
at first you just thought he was trying to mess with you and be cruel, but now
I think he was trying to save me from myself. But it was like maybe this time last year there was like a big news update that he had like 500 pages left to write or something like that, which is like still what he's saying. Right. And I was like, 500 pages? That's not that much. Like that means he's already gotten at least 1,000 pages written.
But this book that we're talking about today is less than 500 pages.
Yes.
So really, he should just release it as is, and then release the other 500 he hasn't as like a, I don't know if you would consider that a novella or a short story or whatever. but just do a little like, like ACOTAR did the whatever in Starlight, like small book,
The little novella.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
just do that.
500 pages in the series of A Song of Ice and Fire would be a novella.
Right. I was going to say, I know compared to standard books, that's not a novella. But for him, it feels like it is. So it's like, just give us what you got. And
that's what people have been saying.
Working.
People have been saying for so long, like, you already have way longer of a manuscript than your run-of-the-mill book. Just publish it.
Right.
And get people off your back.
Right.
And he simply will not. Which, I mean, kudos to him for, like, standing his ground. But when does it end, my man? Like, he's done interviews where he says that the reason why it seems like he's constantly writing and never making progress is because he writes and then he rewrites and then he rewrites and then he rewrites.
At one point, you have to be decisive. You cannot...
Yeah. This is where his publisher and his editors need to be like, George, I'm taking your computer. I'm taking these 1,000 pages. They're done. They're final, locked.
Right.
I'm deleting them on your computer, and they only exist on the publisher's computer.
Right.
These 500 pages are yours.
Right.
Now, finish them.
Sir, are you doing a multiverse? Because if not, you're going to have to pick one. And for the sake of my friend, I need you to do it.
Yeah.
Right now.
George. So, yeah, that's if I was his publisher / editor, whom he's been working with since the 90s, that's what I would do. Oh, you got to get hard with them. And they're just not doing it.
I just envisioned, like, the mafia coming to his door to get hard with him.
Yeah.
Pouring the concrete into the mold on his feet, and they're like, are you going to release the book? Or are we going to have to take drastic measures?
That's right. George?
Oh, God.
Or we're going to have, like, a misery situation. Someone's going to kidnap him.
He is probably dangerously close, and we're getting into the winter months soon, so he should really, you know.
He should keep his head on a swivel. There are people out there probably would do that.
I'm assuming misery happens. Maybe it doesn't happen in the winter months. It just seems like a,
Yeah, I've
closed-in kind of story.
I've never actually seen Misery or read it, but I feel like it happens in the winter.
I've seen it. It's been a very long time, but I've never read it. But
yeah, well, maybe one day.
One day.
It'll happen.
Anywho, I guess we should tell you what the Final Girl support group is all about.
What it's about. Well, I'm assuming you wrote the one-line plot summary, because I didn't.
I did, but I meant to ask you before we started how you felt about it.
I love it.
Okay, great.
It's actually very close to what I had, like, as I was leaving work on my way home tonight, I was like, I need to do the one-line plot summary. And it's actually very dangerously close to this.
Oh boy, our minds.
Yeah.
They're melding. Well, would you like to read it, or
close.
would you like...
Well, you wrote it, so I think you should read it.
Okay. After more than a decade of meeting in a support group, 6 women who have endured the unthinkable are fighting for their lives again, and they won't go down without a fight. I didn't,
Intrigue.
Yes. I didn't want to, give too much away.
Yeah.
If any, it's like the Final Girl support group. The name's right there, so you don't have to say Final Girl 20 billion times. Or do you?
I think it'd be better if you didn't.
I agree.
Grady.
But spoiler alert, we like the FG combo a whole lot.
Oh, my God.
If you took a shot every time the word Final Girl was used, you would be dead.
Death immediately.
By shot, I mean of alcohol.
Yeah, if you drank liquor every time, you'd just be dead for sure.
You would have surpassed the legal amount, the safe amount for your physical body, and you would no longer be with us.
Yep.
That's how many times it's used.
So, it becomes redundant.
A little bit. And I mean, a lot of it.
Again, a lot of these decisions should be caught in editing. Who's editing these books?
where are these do you go to school to be, or is there a class for editors?
Yes, there is. When I was in grad school in the English department, there were like 3 main tracks you could go down. You could do language and literature, which is what I did. You can do creative writing, and you can do like copy editing. So yes, in short, and we all of those tracks like take a lot of the same classes, obviously, but you know, if you are a creative writing, you do a lot more creative writing courses, and that's what your final thesis is like a creative piece, so on and so forth. So I took up many classes on editing.
Maybe the editors need an editor.
Yeah, and maybe some of these editors just either don't care about repetition that much, or they give the authors a little more leeway than they should because of previous success, maybe.
I was thinking that, like a Stephen King, how
Yeah.
comfortable do you feel giving him edits?
Right.
You know what I mean? An author that's been writing for forever, that has a trillion books on the market that are incredibly successful. But if I were that writer, I would want my team to tell me. It's like walking around with spinach in your teeth.
Right.
I don't care how famous the person is. Don't you think they'd rather you tell them, like, hey, you got something in your teeth, than just let them go out there with a giant tree of broccoli in their face?
I agree. And I think, obviously, Grady Hendrix is not Stephen King.
No.
He's certainly nowhere near as prolific as your Stephen Kings, your Brandon Sandersons, your George Martins.
Right.
Like, I imagine that George Martin's editors probably are like, George, you gotta quit.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they're gonna publish that book regardless.
True. And maybe Grady's like, thanks for the suggestion. I like it the way it is.
Yeah, maybe.
Kiss a butt. Publish it anyway.
Yeah, and it could be that situation where he's unwilling to bend to the edit, and
not. We're not trying to dump on Grady over here, but
yeah, and I mean, if they have a contract for this book, then it's just maybe the editor's hands are tied. I don't know.
Maybe.
I just feel like there's so many times whenever we like have read these like random books, we're like, shouldn't this be caught in the edit?
Somebody made a choice. Whether it was the editors or the author, but somebody made a choice.
It's like Verity all over again.
I know.
It's like, why isn't this in the edit?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not trying to poo-poo this book like right off the top or anything, but I will say I while reading this, I couldn't help but think of my Verity experience.
I agree.
So
sadly, but I guess we'll talk about our characters before we.
Right.
First up to bat is Lynette.
Yes, Lynette.
She is our protagonist. Mm-hmm. She's our POV character. This is first person POV.
Maddie's favorite.
Yeah. It is rarely done right. It's rarely done in an enjoyable fashion for me.
Yeah.
Personally, is how I should put that. So I guess kind of the overarching theme here is that these 6 women in the support group all experienced like horrific attacks early in their lives, and they're all kind of based around your famous slasher films.
Correct.
So this book is supposed to be kind of an homage to the slasher genre.
Right, to the final girl, which they have defined for us at the beginning of the book.
Oh yeah, we should.
Final girl, the last and sole survivor of a horror movie.
Mm. See, and this is my issue with the whole final girl trope. Mm-hmm. Because that definition, the sole survivor of a horror film, period, does not say final girl must also fight the attacker and or kill the attacker.
Correct.
Which is the definition that the characters in the book apply to the term.
Yes. I just think it's a way for them to be mean to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
Just a way to knock each other down a peg, or maybe specific certain people down a peg.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I agree.
So.
It's not a, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but
yeah.
One is not equaling one here. We're saying one thing and then saying something else.
Right. We are
after.
Contradicting ourselves a smidge.
Yes. But that,
You know what, Grady?
we can't control what these characters think.
Yeah. You do what you want to do. So Lynette's story is based on...
Oh, it's Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Gotcha. Which is kind of more niche, right? I mean, I had never heard of it until you said it the other day.
Yeah, it's not, I don't think it's definitely not one of the big popular ones that you're going to see characters of at, like, your Hot Topic and different, I don't know, memorabilia, what am I trying to think of the word?
Like merch.
Pop culture
Yeah.
stores and stuff.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely Silent Night, Deadly Night, isn't it? It's definitely, I would say, more niche. I don't know if it's considered a B horror movie or not. It definitely is probably more in the maybe even cult following kind of one where you either really loved it or you didn't. But it's definitely not one of the big popular ones. But I think it's in the horror genre. I'm sure it's kind of more well known. But
Yeah.
if you're into those types of movies, but I would say the general public probably has not watched that one. And from the comparison to what happens to her in the book and what happens in the movie, I double checked with someone I trust. And it's pretty same. So it's pretty horrific. So
Yeah.
it's definitely not a movie that most viewers would maybe want to sit through because it gets pretty deeply violent.
Yeah.
But yeah, Silent Night, Deadly Night. And then there is a sequel, and it's not funny. I actually haven't seen Silent Night, Deadly Night or the second one, but I've seen clips of the second one where the new killer or whatever, in the book it even says like he gets mad at people over their trash, which is something that happens in the movie. But the guy who plays the killer is like ranting down the street, and he does this, he's like, garbage day, but he does this thing with his eyebrows, and it's just like they're moving independently of each other and like a mile a minute while he's saying it, and it's the funniest thing. And Caleb and I will just randomly look at each other and, swing our eyebrows about and say garbage day for a good little laugh. But Silent Night, Deadly Night is actually a pretty rough watch from what I've heard.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that, yeah, you're correct that it's probably more niche. It's definitely not mainstream.
Yeah, more for your horror aficionados.
Yeah.
And not the general viewer.
Right.
Yeah, so that's Lynette, our POV. Heather is based on Nancy from
The Freddy Krueger
Freddy
movies,
Krueger
yeah.
films.
Or Nightmare on
Nightmare on
Elm
Elm
Street. Elm Street. Sorry.
Yeah. Then we have Marilyn.
What is hers? Gnome Coming?
No, Marilyn is Texas Chainsaw
Oh, that's
Massacre.
right. That's right. Marilyn is
Yeah.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yes.
Yes. Which I did not expect, like, because the way that they unfold everyone's stories, it's not like all the way up front, who each person is. It's like...
Fed to you at random?
Yeah, it does feel very sporadic. But I didn't expect one of them to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre because I just don't view that in the slasher genre.
Oh, man.
Technically?
I would say Leatherface is one of the big popular ones. Like, he's got plushies and stuff.
That's so weird to me because when I think of a slasher, I think of, like, just obviously Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers and Ghostface, really. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think of serial killing because it makes me think of Ed Gein, who he's based on, and cannibalism. Mm-hmm. That cannibalism just doesn't feel like it belongs with slashers.
I'm guessing it's the iconic mask.
It probably is the mask.
And I think, I don't know if the character is necessarily sympathetic. I don't know, because that's one that I do not like either. The ones that are like grotesquely violent or over sexually violent, not my jam.
I agree.
And Texas Chainsaw Massacre is just not my jam, and I don't even like the sight of Leatherface. He grosses me out. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, he has plushies and t-shirts and lunchboxes, just like, you know, Jason and Freddy and Michael, which I do agree, though. It's odd that he's in that kind of echelon.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of giving, like, which one of these is not like the other?
Right, right. I feel that way, too. But
especially because you have, like, cannibalism as its own genre, because then you have, like, Wrong Turn, The Hills Have Eyes.
Correct.
What's the old one with the river? Oh, it starts with a D, I think. I think Burt Reynolds is in it. Deliverance.
Oh, yeah.
So you have, like, actual, like, cannibalism genre. I feel like that's where it goes.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I mean, the Leatherface
I'm thinking it's just
is iconic.
Yes, I was going to say, I'm thinking it's just, the image is very
recognizable.
Know it immediately. Yeah, so it's one of those.
Semantics.
Right.
So now we move on to Julia. Julia is essentially your Sidney Prescott.
Yep.
From Scream.
Yeah.
Although Julia is in a wheelchair.
Correct. And that does not happen to Sidney. So that is a turn from, which all of these have like a variance. They're not a one-to-one comparison to their thing that they're inspired by. So that's the big difference for Julia. But yeah, hers is based on Scream.
Yep.
I love Scream. Scream is my favorite.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why or how to explain it to you, because I just can't. It's just the perfect balance of meta and comedy mixed with, yes, the characters are horrible and they do bad things, but they also get their comeuppance. So
right. Actually, what's really funny is what I expected from this book is kind of like the vibe that you get when you watch like the very first Scream. Because you don't it's not taking itself too seriously as a film, but it's still like a little scary, right? You still like don't really know who's killing. And so there's like the camp and then the actual horror aspect, but it's not over the top. It's not too much.
It's just all the different things it's playing with, the humor, the scare, the gore. It's all like right on that, for me anyway, that perfect level. Yeah. They're all balancing each other really well. Like Wes Craven is just, he's brilliant. Which he actually did The Hills Have Eyes, which is, again, not my jam. Ooh, but I do like a lot of Wes Craven's stuff, and Scream is definitely my favorite. But it's truly a perfect balance of all those different aspects. And I was expecting that kind of thing from this book as well.
There's a certain self-awareness that Scream has as a movie. Like, it knows what it's doing, and it's not trying to pretend that it's not. Right. Where that's definitely not the case with this book. Right. But that's what I was expecting.
And Scream, it's funny because when people reference Scream, they're like, oh yeah, it's like one of those meta things. But they don't really realize that it was one of the first ones to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the one to do that.
It's like 97?
It was a time when slasher movies were kind of dying off, and it really revitalized that. But then the scary movies, quote unquote, came out and made a big joke and mockery of it. So I think a lot of people think of Scream as a joke, and which is just truly sad to me. But yeah, it really was the movie that kind of brought back that, or did that meta, self-deprecating, but also self-aware, also still giving you what you came for kind of thing. So I could go on forever, and I won't. But yes, Julia's story is based on Scream, but yes, she did end up in a wheelchair after. Now, some of these girls only had one encounter, but I think most of them, quote unquote, had, even in the book, they consider their second attacks as sequels.
Yeah.
Because not only have these women experienced, being attacked by a killer and survived, but they've also had movie franchises made about them. Mm-hmm. So in that respect, the book is meta in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so on Julia's quote-unquote sequel attack, she fell out a window and in an attempt to save her roommate, and her spine was
injured. Yeah. Yep. And next we have Danny. She is our Laurie Strode. Mm-hmm. So her story is very like Halloween-esque. Yeah. So
yeah, it follows the original Carpenter Halloween 1 and 2 storyline with a dash of the, I think it's 2018 Halloween. But
which one is that? Halloween Forever?
No, it was just Halloween 2018 or whatever, because they have the Halloween 1970. I'm really bad with years, guys. I don't know if I've talked about this, but like years just don't stick in my brain, other than like Batman 1989, just because that's what, Caleb and I talk about it all the time. But yeah, but you have your 1970s Halloween, and then the new trilogy, it was just Halloween 2018, and then you had Halloween Kills, and then you had Halloween Ends. Mm-hmm. So, but this one follows Halloween, or John Carpenter's Halloween 1 and 2, because it references how her killer came back. Yeah, her brother came back while she was in the hospital. So right. It's really kind of following that. But because she lives alone and kind of isolated in the woods and taught herself self-defense and how to be good with guns and stuff like that, that kind of follows Laurie Strode's character in the new trilogy as well. It just doesn't follow through all the way. But
right. Yeah.
And Halloween 2018 ignored Halloween 2 from the Carpenter series. It's all very complicated, and if you bookie nerds are not movie nerds, then I'm real sorry for this rant. But yeah, so she lives on a farm with her partner Michelle. Yeah. Miss Danny does.
Yeah.
In the book.
And then we have Adrian, and she is our Friday the 13th lady.
Yes. So she is our Mrs. Voorhees victim, basically. Yeah. Though it was not, obviously. It was, I forget the original.
Bruce Volker?
Volker.
His name?
Something
Volker
like that.
Volker Voorhees.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah. So, but hers is based on Camp Crystal Lake, but they call it Camp
Red Lake.
Red Lake, yeah.
Creative.
But yeah, so that's who Adrian's based on, and she seems like a cool character. I wish we would have gotten to know her more.
Yeah, she gets 0 page time.
Yeah, which in itself is a comment on horror movies, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah. She's a victim of the Friday the 13th original killer, basically, type thing. But the twist on that one's kind of odd, too.
I agree.
Because it was like, it was, the counselors let his son die, blah, blah, blah. But then it was like, they found out he didn't have a son.
And he was just, like, a pedophile.
Right. It just was real weird. I was like, that twist was odd. It's like, I guess you could have just made it like his son died not because of a counselor, but he had a mental break. So he told himself that it was to, like, alleviate his own personal guilt or something. But he didn't even have a son. I just thought that was weird.
I thought it was weird, too. It was very confusing. But not much time is spent on that, so.
Correct, sadly. Because, again, her character and her story, though she is mentioned and her contribution is
kind of throughout,
but still, I wish we would have gotten more of her.
Yeah. And then Dr. Carol, she is the therapist who kind of runs the Final Girl support group. Mm-hmm. Stephanie Fugate is kind of newly minted Final Girl at the beginning of this book. So,
because all of our Final Girls are older. Like, they basically, their tragedies happened when our real life movies happened, is like the setting that they put their stories in. So most of them are older. Though I have a hard time not imagining the person I'm reading as my age. That was a struggle for me. And I don't know why my brain can't get around that. But most of these characters are older.
Yeah, I was trying to do the math, which it never ends well. But I think that Lynette would be like right around 40.
See, I thought she was, the way she was described, she was like in her 50s or something. But I don't know. I can't remember if we get told. We just know that she's gray and wrinkly. They kind of mention how they're quote unquote old ladies, basically. But
Yeah. But Stephanie is like 18
yeah,
at this point. So she's survived an attack.
Yeah, she had her first run-in was with her
tennis
teacher. He was like trying to poison the team, and somehow she figured it out, or ended up surviving. I'm not sure what that is based on, if it's based on anything at all.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then Stephanie's sequel attack was a version of the Friday the 13th. So she was part of another character's sequel, I guess, or attack. She was part of another person's attack, so she was a victim a second time as well. So she's a well-established final girl, I guess.
Yeah.
She's been through the ringer, just like the others.
And we have Chrissy Mercer. And hers, I didn't get hers at all. We don't really get it described. You said it's supposed to be what, leprechaun?
I'm assuming, because hers is like, they say that her real life story was turned into a movie called Gnome Coming. So if it's Gnome Coming, I'm just assuming it's leprechaun.
Yeah.
We didn't really get any detail of her attack or what happened to her.
Just that it happened at homecoming.
Yeah. Which I don't believe that the Leprechaun movie had anything to do with the dance. So then, but...
Definitely not the first one, because that's the one that Jennifer Aniston is in.
Correct. But, I mean, like, those get wild. So, I guess, but again, we don't really get any other description besides that. But when you add gnome into it, the only other comparison I can think of is leprechaun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there are other horror movies based on dances.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But again, when you're throwing the name gnome in there, the first comparison I come up with is leprechaun. But we didn't get any details of her attack other than that. So, which I thought was kind of a... If you're going to go there, go there.
Yeah. Weird choice.
Yeah.
There.
And her character...
Weird.
She's bat poop crazy. Like, I don't...
Yeah.
I don't even understand her character or her motivations, so...
I understand very few motivations of any of the characters, if I'm being honest.
It's a problem.
It's a thing. Next we have Sky and Pax, and they're Dr. Carroll's sons.
Right.
Sky is 26 and Pax is 8.
Yeah. Quite the age gap.
Age gap.
It happens.
It does happen.
20 years is a pretty big one.
Yeah. Nigh on 20 years.
Or I guess 18 if he's 26. I couldn't remember if he was 26 or 28, but so thanks for remembering their ages.
Either way, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then we have Garrett P. Cannon, and he's a police officer. He was a police officer. Either way, he is the one who saves Lynette in her ordeal.
Yeah, in her original ordeal. He was the police officer that found and saved her.
I think he saved her in her second ordeal as well.
Correct.
Yeah, so. But he's kind of a shit guy.
Yeah.
So.
Pretty yucko, but
yeah.
I feel like our descriptions are pretty vague, like vaguer than normal, but you'll get all the information as we go through the plot points. But we felt it was more important for you to know who they were supposed to be based off of to
it's
get
easier.
into it. Yeah.
Yeah, especially because when we're going through, like, the full plot points, it's easier to just get through the points instead of stopping and then detouring on their story.
You mean like it did in the book? I don't mind if books do that sometimes, but it comes to a point where you just gotta just give it to me. Stop spoon feeding me and like give me the information so we can move on. You know, I don't know.
I agree.
We'll get into all that, but let's just get into the plot points. So we start the book, as we said, we're from Lynette's point of view, and she's waking up in her apartment. She's working out, she's watching the news, and on the news she sees a story about a massacre at Camp Red Lake with one survivor, Stephanie Fugate, and Lynette thinks that now Stephanie is a final girl, or is recognizing that she's a final girl, which she already was one, but... You know, now she's really one because she's had her second attack or whatever.
Yeah.
And as we said, Camp Red Lake was... Adrian's. So not only was Adrian attacked at Camp Red Lake, but she now worked at / owned, rebranded Camp Red Lake to be more of a counseling sort of camp for people who have dealt with trauma or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm assuming, why Stephanie was there.
Right. So then Lynette goes to group, which they have group once a month. Right.
I believe.
Yeah. It's definitely not once a week.
No, they're kind of spread out. They're not, it's not like they're all living within like a 30-minute radius. Like for some of them, it's a trek.
Yeah. And this is in LA, by the way. The setting. So Lynette goes to group, and this is basically the only time she really ever leaves her apartment.
Yeah. She doesn't have a lot of human or any human interaction other than with these women.
Right. So she goes to group, and that's where we meet most of the rest of our FGs. Marilyn, Heather, Julia, Danny, and Dr. Carol. So they've been doing this group for like 16 years, which is a really long time. And they're waiting for Adrian, and she's running late.
I thought it was even longer than 16 years, but they probably have only been doing the group for 16 years but they've been dealing with their trauma for obviously decades.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right.
So... And they're just, like, bickering. They're all just fighting with each other.
Oh, it was maddening.
It was, because they weren't, like... They were just bickering. Like, Heather kept talking about food, and...
Oh, it was narcissism on display from 5 different angles. Like, it was... Maybe not all of them, but... Yeah, it's just... Because Julia pretty much just kind of hangs back. And Danny wasn't really in the argument either.
No.
So, but Lynette, Heather, and Marilyn were all just being very, I don't know, self-centered and argumentative and...
Yeah, not hearing what the other one was saying.
Or thinking of the other person's feelings.
Yeah, and all of their phones are, like, kind of going off multiple times, and they're all ignoring them. But then, eventually, Marilyn looks at her phone, and they see that Adrian was killed.
Yeah, in that Camp Red Lake attack, or as a result.
As a result of, So...
Or kind of in
conjunction.
Yes.
So, so that's... I mean...
Because none of them could get a hold of her after it was put on the news, and they were just kind of hoping she was okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah. So, Adrian is killed before... Like, the book really starts.
Yeah.
So, that's terrible. But, that's basically all that the beginning is.
Yeah. There was a point in the group, Danny, because they've been doing this, like she said, for 16 years. And they're all just to a point where, like, they're not getting anything out of it. All they do is bicker. There's no emotional growth. They're all just... kind of plateaued at where they are, and it's just they're just all sitting and stewing and whoever they are at the moment and just fighting with each other.
Yeah.
And Danny, as we said, she has her partner, Michelle. Michelle is very sick. Mm-hmm. And Danny just wants to spend as much time with her as she can because Danny is dying. Michelle is dying of cancer. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like she's at a hospice point. It could be any day. And this drive is like 2 hours for Danny.
Right.
So she said, she's not coming back after this, but she wanted to come in person to let them know. And Lynette just loses it.
Yeah, she like starts crying.
And she's like, you know that we have to do this group because of Heather. Because Heather does drugs. She's a drug addict, which is, if we're comparing her to Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street, to turn her into a drug addict made me pretty sad.
Yeah.
But I guess I understand it if you're considering that if she was taking caffeine pills to stay awake. If we don't get a lot of detail of Heather's attack either, because it's of a supernatural nature, the author didn't really fill it in. And I don't know if it's because he wasn't sure how to make it realistic or he just wanted us to fill in the blanks, but
either way, lazy writing.
Right. But yeah, Heather's a drug addict. She's super selfish. And she's the one who's like, well, someone needs to provide snacks because I'm hungry and I don't have a lot of money, which.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And in this little bickering session, she also kind of like blames Lynette for like ruining her movie deal or book deal or some sort of deal.
Yeah.
And I was confused about that.
Yeah, I can't remember the specifics, but I don't know if Lynette agreed to something and backed out or, took an interview away from Heather. I can't really remember, but Heather's a super selfish character. She's only looking out for
number one.
Yeah, which is her. And yeah, but and all this, Lynette's like, we have to have group, otherwise, what else is going to keep Heather sober? Which Heather's not sober. So, Lynette's projecting, and really she's the one that needs this group.
Yeah, because she's the one who's coping the worst.
I think so. Heather's up there.
Yeah.
At the worst, just on a completely different way.
They're like just different playing fields, really.
Right.
Because, Lynette, at this point, we actually see the full extent of Lynette's paranoia and OCD tendencies. The way that, she takes like multiple buses that double back and go here and go there. And she's riding buses for like hours.
Yeah, she does that on the way to the group too. Like she's always checking shoes of people that are getting on the bus and seeing if anyone is familiar following her and always making note of people's face. She's always double checking, backtracking. Like she is like doing this super spy thing where, she's making sure that she's not being followed. No one knows where she is, So yeah, when she leaves she only leaves the house for this thing.
Yeah.
And she goes through great lengths to do so. It's that important to her that she risks, her in her mind, her safety to be here. Mm-hmm. But she won't admit that she's the one that really needs this. Whereas everyone else in the group is basically like, we don't come here for Heather, we come here for you.
Yeah. And
that was a kind of a big blow to her.
Yeah. And she almost, she doesn't really accept it in this moment. No. Which is, it's, I don't know. But you're also getting this from Lynette's perspective. Mm-hmm. So immediately that she is an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot trust anything that's coming in because it's all from her perspective. Right. And she's clearly unwell.
And she's agitated at Marilyn she's like, I know Marilyn is just sitting there wanting to check her phone and she's not even engaged in the conversation anymore. Which the conversation is, there's no meaningful conversation happening at this point. It's all bickering and arguing. Lynette's not even like understanding of Danny's, Danny could even say like, but Danny didn't say, but it's just like, she needed to step back to be with Michelle. It's like, no one even said, oh, well, after Michelle passes, would you consider coming back? Like, that wasn't even a question. It was just like, how could you break up the group? You know that if you stop coming, then everyone else is going to stop coming too. It's just like, she completely flipped out on her. It's like, instead of recognizing like, oh, dang, I need this. And Dr. Carol, what are you doing? She was doing that therapist thing and asking like kind of passive questions, but like she should have stepped in and been like, okay, let's really break this down because I think we're actually having a moment here that we need to discuss.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So after that bomb, that's when everyone finally checks their phones and we find out that Adrian's dead, and that's a huge blow.
Yeah, huge blow.
Because they consider Adrian to be or at least Lynette considers Adrian to be the best of them. In the sense that she took over, like we said, the Camp Red Lake and turned it into a place for traumatized people to go and to get the help that they need and to kind of rehabilitate. And we kind of learn a little bit of her story, right, at this point? Or is that a little bit later?
I think we learn a little bit, but I don't think we really, like, fully learn her story, to be honest. Because I think there are, like, tidbits sprinkled in about how she used the proceeds from, like, her movie franchise.
That's right.
She, it's because of her that everyone made sure to own the rights to their franchise instead of like someone else, the manager of production or whatever. So she's kind of set that precedent.
Right.
And she used that money to buy Camp Red Lake and turn it in. And then she like speaks at like all these events and advocates for victims and and for women specifically.
Yeah, she worked through her trauma and came out on the other side and wanted to help others. Yeah. And I think that's amazing. Yeah. Like I said, Adrian sounded like an amazing character.
Yeah. And it's a shame that we didn't actually get to experience her.
Correct. Yeah. And they do make a point to say that, and this is a horror movie trope, especially back in the day. It's like the trope was that like a black person in a movie or African American person in a movie, they were going to be the first one to die. Without question. And of course, she is an African American woman, and she's the first character in our book to die. So it comments on that trope, but also falls into that trope, which has been done before. Yeah. But so it did a meta thing there, I guess. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is that she's the only minority in the group of our final girls, and she's the only one of them that dies. Yeah. Not just the first.
That's true.
And so whether or not Grady Hendrix was trying to comment on that kind of the token minority is the first one to die trope, it should serve the story in a way. And really, the only way that Adrian's death does anything is eventually she's the voice in Lynette's head. Yeah. To, like, make her make better decisions. Yeah. After she makes a slew of horrific decisions. Yeah. So it just doesn't... It kind of falls into the only black character of the book dying to serve the white character kind of thing. And that is a yikes. Yeah. So, intentional or not, that's what is happening. So, that's a problem.
Yeah. It's just weird to make that comment and then do it. Yeah. Like I said, it has been done before, in movies. But
it's a trope.
Right. But, or even like commenting on the trope has been done in movies and stuff too. But yeah, at this point it's like either do something better than it then, or I don't know. It just
subvert the trope, make her the final girl.
Yeah. Or just not
ignore the trope altogether.
Yeah, just not comment on it if you're not going to do something with it. Like
it's a shitty trope anyway. Yeah. So just ignore it.
There's actually, I can't think of the name of it, but there is a new horror movie out that I believe the whole cast is black actors, and it's like basically like, well, we can't all die first, you know?
I think I have seen the previews for that.
Yeah. Yeah. But I haven't seen it yet, but...
Yeah, see, like, that is the way to, like, acknowledge and comment on a harmful trope and use it to the advantage of whatever, like the movie, the TV show, the book.
Yeah.
Instead of just using it.
Right.
Right?
Even the second Scream movie, the first 2 characters in that one are African-American actors. And Jada Pinkett Smith is one of them. And she makes the comment about all of that, and you know, talking to it, just she makes the meta comments and stuff, and she ends up dying. But there are also Black characters in the movie that live as well, that like are smart and are like, yeah, I'm not sticking around for this and getting killed. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So they did the trope, but at the same time, like, had the character make the comment on it themselves rather than someone else in the story. And I don't know. It just, I'm not like, I'm not fully equipped to discuss this topic, but it's just, at this point, if you're going to say something about it, then make it count or subvert it.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's hard for us to make a definitive statement on a topic like that, but it's not working for me.
No.
We can call out whenever it is poorly done, and it is poorly done.
And again, it sucks. Like, she sounds like a cool character. We didn't get to meet her.
I know. It just...
She would have made too much sense, and all the nonsense wouldn't have happened in the book, because she would have been the level-headed one that's like, no, let's not do that.
And I feel like Lynette probably would have listened to her.
Correct.
And the other ones, when they're like questioning Lynette's sanity, she's just like, you don't understand. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe she's lost and they don't know where she is. And they're like, we have to find Adrian, the massacre at Camp Red. Like, where is she? Has she been taken hostage?
Yeah.
And we need to find her.
Yeah. You know what? It would have been cool if we would have
found
her alive at the end.
Right?
That would have been nice.
Maybe she's hiding in the panic cabin.
Yeah.
Because she is so terrified that someone is still at Camp Red Lake, which they are.
Right.
Oh my, Grady Hendrix, call me.
She could have even, like, called them from the, you know what I mean? Like, she could have kind of been helping. I don't know. It would have been a completely different story. Like
totally different story.
It wouldn't have been utter cuckoo nonsense.
Psychosis?
At some moments, so.
Yeah. Moving on.
We're getting way ahead of ourselves.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
This one is just difficult.
I was gonna say, does this book review feel wild madness? Because that's kind of how some of the book felt reading.
This is how I felt the entire first 3/4 of this book. Mm-hmm. I just felt like, am I losing it?
Mm-hmm. I felt like that a little bit too. And we just read The Shining. And I didn't feel like that at all.
I always felt in control when I was reading The Shining.
I did too. But I would put this book down and I was just like, or because there would just be a random sentence in there that you're just like, was that an intrusive thought? Was that her? Who was she saying that about? What?
And
am I supposed to be catching this? What?
Yeah. So many of the, like, especially, like, everything before she takes Stephanie, all of that is just, I was like, is this real? Is this written to where we're supposed to immediately distrust Lynette and we are questioning whether everything is not real? Mm-hmm. Because it seems like that's what we're supposed to be experiencing, but it's so unpleasant, and I feel like I am insane. Mm-hmm. So this is a super unenjoyable experience for me.
You're detached, not just from reality a little bit, but from Lynette. You don't feel connected to Lynette necessarily.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Nothing that was happening in that section made any sense whatsoever. Like, none of her actions, not even when she was trying to reason it through in her mind, which we are in, even her reasoning didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so it made me question what's going on. And I almost never have to go back and reread things.
Yeah.
Almost never. And I would regularly have to be like, I have to reread this because that felt really crazy.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, nope, that's right.
Or just like I said,
Okay.
something's like plopped in there and you're like, wait, does that fit with the rest of the pair? What does that mean?
Yeah.
What was that about?
It was just bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, losing Group and losing Adrian really sends Lynette into a spiral.
Full-scale spiral.
And like Maddie said, like we see her go home and then we see the lengths that she goes to like feel okay being out in public, which she's not even feeling okay in public. She's in constant fear and watching her back, and even she'll get lost in thought and then she's like, oh crap, I wasn't watching the people around me. You know, It's just you just feel like full of anxiety and fear, and it's
Yeah, it was so strange.
Yeah.
And what's weird is she spends all of this energy looking at people's shoes and whatever else, and none of it seems successful. It's not helping her at all. It's not making her catch pattern or anything like that. It just is all very superfluous.
Maybe normally she's better at it, but she's distracted because of Adrian's death. So it's even really more disjointed. And like I said, she gets distracted. And like you said, it's just, it's not assisting her.
Yeah.
If anything, I feel like I'm getting lost. Where
hindering.
are we now?
Yeah.
But, so yeah, she gets home and we learn more about Adrian's story just from, I guess, Lynette kind of telling us, the reader. And they figure out, the first killer was Bruce Volker. And then this recent killer was his nephew, Christoph, who was mad because he wasn't getting royalties from the movies that were coming out. And so he committed this current Camp Red Lake murder. And he actually had dug up Bruce Volker's head and put it in Adrian's refrigerator.
Gross.
Which I had to reread that part because I was like, wait, was she keeping Volker's head just kind of like as a I know he's dead kind of thing?
Yeah.
But so I had to reread that and I was like, oh no, okay. Christoph put it in her fridge to shock her, to catch her off guard, to kill her. But which was kind of wild.
That is wild. I mean, it is no easy feat to just dig 6 feet into the ground and open a coffin to get their skull.
Right.
That is literally just bones.
Yeah.
At this point.
Which Jason Voorhees did keep his mother's dead body / head, because it got lopped off. But, so the nephew thing and then, the Volker guy not even having a son, like that was kind of odd.
Super odd.
But after we kind of get that little story wrap up, then Lynette's home and we're in her apartment and like we learn about she's built this cage inside her front door that you like enter through the front door, which I imagine has like a million locks on it anyway, and then she enters this like mesh cage that's supposed to be whatever proof, like anything, and then she has to like put in a certain code to like get out of the cage into her apartment.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, then it turns your apartment into a cage because then you have to get into the cage to get out of it. And, I mean, it just seems very complicated. Like, what if you got yourself trapped in that cage?
Yeah.
Yikes. So that was not great. But so we're in her apartment now and she's got all the blinds closed but all that jazz. But we meet her plant, Fine, whose full name is Final Plant. Because
oh my god.
Did you know that they're final girls? So this is the final plant and she's nicknamed it Fine.
This whole subplot with the plant is so unnecessary.
It was a little odd.
I mean, we already know the level of Lynette's unwellness.
And the lengths she's gone to keep herself separate from people.
Yeah. That all has stacked up and made us all feel her psychosis.
Very isolated.
And then you bring in this plant that she talks to and then talks back to herself in the voice of this plant.
Yeah.
And you've lost me, bud. This was completely irrelevant and unnecessary.
And it was very concerning when she was more concerned for the plant's welfare than a person.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, that made me go, really, girl? Girl.
Like, come on. I mean, I understand that he wanted to give her something that she had like a connection with and was kind of responsible for keeping alive.
Right.
But let's give her a cat.
Yeah. Well, it made me think, so there's that Sandra Bullock movie, 28 Days. Not 28 Days Later, not the
Excellent
zombie
movie.
That is an excellent zombie movie. That actually made me scared of zombies.
Maybe that might be the best one.
They're fast.
The fast ones.
They're fast and smart, and no.
They're very like, it's like zombies meet the crazies.
Yeah.
That's the 28 Days Later
like,
zombies.
they are so fast.
Yeah, those are not the ones that I want to encounter in our apocalypse. I want the slow, dumb ones.
Yep, they better be.
I want the Walking
slowest
Dead ones
and the dumbest.
Yeah.
If I have to outrun one, I'm dead. 100%.
Yeah.
But I check 28 weeks, which is like it's about rehabilitation. I think it's like drugs or alcohol or whatever, but it's a rehabilitation center thing. And one of the things that the counselors do is, to help the people like reestablish their life and be ready to like take care of, get themselves ready to be able to be in a relationship. It's like they kind of have like these steps. So sort of like, okay, you got to be able to keep a plant alive. And then if you can keep a plant alive, then next step is to like get a fish or something, and you keep the fish alive, and then maybe you can like graduate to a dog or whatever and like move your way up to like being able to care for yourself and something else, and then maybe you're ready for a relationship down the road kind of thing, you know, these steps you take. So that's what kind of made me think of that, like she's still on step one trying to keep this plant alive.
Yeah.
And she goes through this description of like a time that the plant got really sick. It got like mites or something. And she like stayed up all night for like over a week or something, was like cleaning the leaves and doing all this stuff. And like, trying to, by the end of the book, I feel like the plant is I can't think of words tonight, but it's meant to be like a representation of herself, right? It's like she's keeping herself contained in this little pot, and her roots are just like stifled and curled up, so it's like, this is her like trying to learn to care for herself maybe or something, but I don't know, but she just, the attachment with the plant, it was something.
Now I totally get naming the plant. I mean, I have a plant that I have named, but we also like name everything. But I don't talk to my plant. And I also am not under any delusions that it is talking to me. Mm-hmm. I just think that either have the plant be there and representing what it's supposed to represent.
Right.
And eliminate the whole talking thing.
Right.
Or give her an animal of sorts.
Right.
Maybe even just a fish. Like,
yeah.
To me, cats are pretty self-sufficient. They don't take a lot of care or really attention that much. Mm-hmm. So, in this situation, and it's not a situation where you have to, like, walk your cat. I mean, I know people do, but...
Right. Like, but it makes more sense to give emotional intelligence to a living animal than to a plant. Yeah,
because cats are sentient, and they have personalities, and you can have an actual bond with a cat.
Yeah.
So
this isn't an Audrey 2 plant,
right?
From Little Shop of Horrors.
Exactly. So it just make more sense for Fine, to be a cat.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. Wow. We've been talking for a while and we're barely into this book. We have a lot of feelings.
We do. And I had actually considered, whenever I started writing, not doing plot points, but doing just like certain things from the book that we wanted to talk about. Because I was like, a lot of this plot is not super relevant
Right.
to
But a
the
lot of
overall
it
story.
is part of the problem too.
But it's
of
all
not not fully enjoying it.
Yeah.
Or attributes to the enjoyment or not enjoyment of it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So
Yeah. So it's like in there, and I was just like, don't I?
right.
One of the book podcasts that I really love is the two British guys, Smug Book Club. And on books that they both dislike, instead of doing plot points, they'll do like the Dirty Dozen, the top 12 things they disliked most.
Oh, that's nice.
Which is always funny.
Yeah. This is obviously much less linear, but like I said, we're just giving you a taste of the lunacy that we experienced while reading.
Yeah. Yeah. It was full lunacy. But
yeah. So we're in the apartment, and someone knocks on Lynette's door, which is rare because Lynette has not given anyone, well, not anyone, but she doesn't give out her address. No one's supposed to know where she lives. Not even the final girls or Dr. Carroll, like, no. But she did at one point give Julia her address in emergencies only. Mm-hmm. Everyone's trying to call her, or at least Julia's trying to call her, and she's not answering the phone. So Julia shows up at her house, and Lynette ignores her. She's like, she was not supposed to break the seal on that envelope unless it's an emergency. What is she doing here? I'm not answering.
yeah.
She's upset. Well, and of course she has like cameras and stuff so she can see out there. Mm-hmm. Then Julia comes to the door again, but she's not alone. Julia's killer, the ghost, is with her. And he's basically like, open the door or I'm going to kill her right now.
Yeah.
Well, Lynette's like, final girls got to take care of final girls. I got to open the door.
Yeah.
So she opens the door, but they're in the cage. And she starts shooting at the guy in the cage. And it's this whole ruckus, which if it was real, the bullets didn't even go through the cage, unfortunately. Right. So even if it was real, that would have been Bad News Bears because she wouldn't have saved anyone. But turns out, it wasn't really even Julia's killer back for revenge. It was just this reporter guy.
Yep.
That made me mad. I was like, are you absolutely kidding me? Like, how wildly untrusting this woman is. Mm-hmm. You showed up at her house, and not only that, but you pretended like you were under the attack of your killer.
Yeah.
You've lost your mind.
Yeah.
I think I wrote on my little Post-it note, like, WTF. Like, I was like, are you serious?
I know.
Right now.
That's a super shit thing to do.
Yeah. And the emergency was that someone's writing a book about final girls. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You couldn't text her that so she could read that and go, oh, wow, yeah, I better call her back.
Right. Exactly.
No, you just showed up and played this weirdly dangerous game.
Yeah, because I feel like they've known each other for so long that Julia had to have known that Lynette's first response would be to fire at random.
Yeah.
Like,
hey, it's a killer. I'm going to kill him. Like,
yeah, I just feel like Julia should have assumed that would be her reaction.
Yeah.
Because clearly, from what we know of Lynette, takes her gun with her everywhere.
Uh-huh.
And clearly
goes through great lengths to not be
without a weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or to be known where she lives or tracked or anything. So, yikes. Yeah. So that wasn't a good decision.
Yeah. It's super rude, but they're apparently someone is writing a book about their group, and Christoph Volker knew about the book, and Julia thinks it's Heather.
Yeah,
basically,
because Heather's always down on her luck looking for a book,
and she's always looking for that deal.
Right.
So at this point, the reporter, his name's Russell Thorne, whatever, he looks out the window and sees cops all over the street, which I didn't really understand why cops were all over the street. I guess probably because Julia was firing her gun, but...
You mean Lynette?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Lynette was
Yes, I
firing
think
her
it was
gun.
Lynette's gunfire that called the police to their location.
So he's like, oh, there are cops out here.
But I guess a
in the
swarm
street.
of police is kind of unusual.
A little bit of an overreaction. This is L.A.
I was going to say,
I mean,
in like our neighborhoods, probably a swarm would show. In LA, maybe not.
yeah. So there were cops all over, but then randomly, there a ton of gunfire just comes right into the apartment.
Yeah, sniper.
And Russell Thorne is hit. I think he's dead.
Yes.
Julie is hit, not dead.
Well, we don't know.
As far as I think Lynette thinks, I think Julia, I don't think she's dead.
Because Julie was calling after her as Lynette was leaving her behind.
Yep. Lynette flees, find the plant. He's fallen over. He's out of his pot. And she thinks to herself that she can still hear his screams as she runs out of the apartment.
Yep. Along with Julia's.
Along with Julia's screams.
And later she thinks about it and she's just so upset about leaving Fine behind. Oh, yeah, and Julia. I was like, girl, get your priorities straight.
Yeah. So this was one of the scenes where I had to reread it because I was like, wait.
Wildness occurring. And it's weird because, like, on her way home, she was thinking about, when she's checking her surroundings and stuff like that. She makes a thought about snipers and how, like, that's not how anyone's going to come for you. They're going to come for you with a knife. So it's just weird that not a chapter later and she's getting sniped dead.
Yeah, and I also I thought it was super confusing narratively that she, like, fires her gun in her apartment at Ghost, quote unquote, Russell Thorne. And then there were cops in the street, obviously responding to the gunfire. But then there's gunfire that comes into the apartment.
Right.
When I first read that, I thought it was the police.
Yeah, I think I was pretty sure that it was a sniper right off the bat, just because he was saying how the police were down on the ground and that it seemed like the gunfire was coming from above. But yeah, I at first I didn't know. I was like, are we doing like a SWAT thing where we're like coming in the windows?
That was my thought, because like Russell's looking out the window, and so police or people on the street could see him. So my thought was, well, they've heard gunfire. Now they know multiple people are in this apartment. Do they think this is a hostage situation? Is it the police firing at random into the apartment, which seems silly, because why would you just fire if there are hostages? But it was not clear to me.
Right. I think that was the only reason why I determined after, probably reading it twice, that it wasn't the police, but also her thought about snipers. The previous chapter, I was like, oh, this is a sniper because of that comment. Otherwise, it wasn't necessarily clear, which could add to your question of whether she's a reliable narrator. Then you're like, okay, is she making up this scenario in her head where someone's coming after her, or was it, just the police, or was it real?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's what he was going for or what, but but then she goes to her secret car that is because she talks about how she doesn't drive anywhere, but she has this car, but it's like under a different name, or she's gone to great lengths to not have it connected to her, but all its tires are slashed. And then she goes to this
like
storage
box.
unit, and the lock on it is different than the lock she put on it, which to me, I'm like, so the person that did these things wanted you to notice so that you would be in more of a panic?
Yeah.
Like, why change the lock? Like, why make it obvious to her unless, you're trying to send her into a tailspin, which I guess that was the goal. And
I also, she didn't actually open the storage unit.
Because she saw the lock
was different.
Correct. She saw the lock from far away and was like, okay, they know about my storage unit. They're probably watching me right now. I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
So she didn't even go to it.
Yeah. I feel like she should have just opened her storage unit. I know that doesn't go in line with her psychosis, but...
Right. And kind of be like, oh, what did they do?
Yeah. Like, what...
Because was there a trap? Did they take anything? Like,
is there somebody in there?
Did they literally just change the lock to mess with her? We'll never know. I'm guessing yes. But yeah, the only because she has that go bag right by her door in her cage. So that's all she's got on her.
And she had I think she had a substantial amount of cash in her lock or in her storage unit or whatever. So
oh, maybe she had a little bit in her go bag, but probably in her storage unit she had more resources. But
yeah, either way, that was all of that. I was questioning the whole time. Is this real?
Yeah, yeah, because it was like I said, it was like you'd have these dual statements of yeah, I don't drive. Oh, but I have this car. I have this secret car. It's like, oh okay.
Yeah, which, I mean, why waste time and put yourself at risk riding every bus in LA when you just have a car?
Yeah.
You could drive a wild route in your car,
right?
But you're still alone in your car.
But you could be followed because they can know that you're in that car. They won't know that you're on that bus. I don't know.
This is not, there are many holes.
Right.
In this logic.
Yeah.
So, this is when Lynn calls Dr. Carroll.
Yeah.
And Dr. Carroll comes and picks her up and takes her home with her.
Yeah. Which their meeting is also odd, at a Starbucks, and she, waits and watches her for a little bit or something. Doesn't she,
yeah, and then she
something
just,
odd?
Randomly, jumps in her car.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Super strange. I also think it's really strange that a therapist would take one of their patients to their home where their kids are.
Yeah. I think Lynette kind of convinces her that they're in danger and she won't let her take her anywhere else. But still, I would have been no, I'll take you to my office.
Yeah.
Not my house.
Right. I'll take you to a hotel.
Yeah, but so she decides to take her to her house with her kids.
Yeah, no worries. So that's when we meet Pax and Sky, and Lynn is staying in the basement. Mm-hmm. Sleeping in the tub.
Yeah, in the the workout room.
Yeah.
That has no windows,
Right.
So no escape, but no other form of entry either, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's one point of egress.
Yeah.
Ingress.
Yeah.
It's weird. But at this point, this is when they find out Dr. Carroll gets a call that Heather's halfway house that she lived in burned down. Mm-hmm. And she disappeared, and the authorities think that Heather could be responsible.
Right. But Lynette's oh no, they're trying to take us out. Someone's taking out Final Girls. They're coming after us.
Yeah.
Adrian, my house, now Heather's house. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They're coming for us. And they're all I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I know she's acting erratic, but you can't deny that
there seems to be a pattern.
Yeah. Could it be a coincidence? Maybe, but it's not a great leap to go, it's kind of pattern-like.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Okay.
So then Lynette stays the night, and the next morning she's still at Dr. Carroll's, obviously. And another call comes in, and Danny has been arrested.
Right.
So apparently the police wanted Danny for questioning about her case because someone had come forward and confessed to the crimes.
Yeah, because Danny ended up having to kill her killer, a.k.a. her brother, because
he was attacking her.
Yeah, or people that she loved. I can't remember, but she ended up, I think, bashing his head in or something.
Yeah,
it was a violent death, but I mean, the man killed a lot of people, and she felt a lot of guilt for that, Mm-hmm. So then when this other guy comes forward, it's oh, so did I kill my brother? You're saying I killed my brother needlessly now?
Yeah.
Because at first it was just wow, I killed my brother. That sucks. I loved him. Mm-hmm. But now you're telling me maybe
it was someone else
maybe, yeah, because her brother and this other guy had escaped at the same time.
Right.
And the killer wore a mask. She never saw her brother's face. Mm-hmm. She just killed the killer. And I think was told later that it was her brother, or the things he was doing implicated that it was her brother. I can't fully remember. Yeah. But yeah, when this other guy comes forward, it's because so then she's oh, so was my brother just coming to see me?
Yeah.
Or maybe when she killed him, he had the mask. I can't even remember anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't fully really matter. But yeah,
Right.
but someone else comes forward saying that, oh, they committed the murders, not the person she killed. So she's already distraught. So then the police come to her house for questioning, and they're trying to take her in for questioning. And she's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying with my dying partner in here. Mm-hmm. And they were like advancing on her, and she like shot bullets into the air. She wasn't shooting at anyone, but she got tased and arrested.
Yep. So, yeah. And that's that point where we get Danny's story.
Yeah.
So.
I could read it to you more accurately, but again, doesn't fully.
Yeah, it doesn't.
The nitty gritty details don't fully matter necessarily in the
not
grand
really.
scheme of things.
Right. So Lynn is just chilling in Dr. Carroll's house. And for whatever reason, she goes into Sky's room. Now, Sky's the 26-year-old. Mm-hmm. She goes into Sky's room. And she catches him in a compromising position. Mm-hmm. And with compromising materials on his computer screen. Uh-huh. And
unusual compromising whatever's on his computer screen.
It's never described what kind of like porn he's watching.
It just says that it's like weird, and doesn't she compare it to like the things that Chrissy deals in or something?
Yeah.
Sort of, which I also thought was like weird.
I agree.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what Chrissy's doing over there besides, selling memorabilia, but
yeah.
She compared it to that, which I thought was odd.
I agree.
But I didn't want it at that point. I was like, I don't want to know what this boy's doing. So
yeah,
that's fine. You don't have to tell me.
Right.
I know enough.
We know enough. So she asks him, basically, she talks to him about his like computer prowess. And he set up all of Dr. Carroll's like website and blah, blah, blah. And so she's like, come with me to my apartment. We're going to sneak in, like in the night. And we got to get my computer.
I got to see what the police have seen or taken or tampered with.
Right, exactly. So he agrees. She like gives him money.
Or yeah. She says she's going to give it. Yeah, offers him money.
Either way. So they are sneaking out. Well, she sneaks into Dr. Carroll's office and sees files on her desk at some point.
Yeah, just of other final girls, which we know that Dr. Carroll specializes in that kind of counseling and trauma. So I didn't think it was that unusual, but she specifically had out Stephanie's folder, which, again, a recent victim, so it doesn't...
Not really out of the
Not raising alarm bells for me necessarily, but...
It's noted. Lynette just like basically notes it.
Yes.
And then whenever it becomes night, she and Sky are sneaking out. And when, Pax, the 8-year-old, sees him.
He's kind of a little jerk.
He kind of is, yeah.
And for having a counselor mom, like, she's just so, like, blasé about his, like, rude attitude.
Yeah.
Woman.
Seems a little weird.
Yeah. But, I mean, she can't get a handle of 5 grown women bickering, so I guess she can't get a handle of her little turd 8-year-old either.
Yeah, for real.
Sorry, Dr. Carroll. I don't know how I feel about you. I don't know a lot about you, but from what I've seen, I'm not impressed.
Yeah.
We'll say that.
We'll just, leave it at that. So Pax catches them, and Lynette is like, here's $100. Don't tell your mom. And he gives her a comic that he drew, and she's like sick and puts it in her bag and is like, whatever.
Right. Because earlier he was like, buy my comic, and she's like, get away from me. So to keep quiet, he's like, you have to buy my comic. And she's like, okay, how much?
$100.
He's like insistent on selling this dang comic.
I know.
Which later I'm like, did no one look at this thing before he starts selling that? Who did he give them to, and did they not read it? We'll get back to that, but...
Yeah.
Wild.
So they go to her apartment. Of course, they do Lynette's usual, like, evasive maneuver. She won't sit in the seat. She sits in the friggin' floorboard of the car.
Right.
And so, whatever. They sneak in.
She makes note that he looks like her high school boyfriend.
Tommy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And let's not forget, she's not in her 30s. She's like in her 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
Something
50s,
like that.
Maybe. Something. So they go in. She, like, has her hard drive stored in, like, the wall or whatever. She pulls it out, and he click-clacks in it and finds that someone had installed some, like, backdoor software to give them access to all of her shit, basically. Yeah. I don't know how that works, but that's what he says happens.
Yep.
And lo and behold, we find out that Lynette wrote a book about everyone in group.
Not Heather.
Not Heather. She wrote it and decided she would never publish it.
Right. It turned into more of a journal than anything else.
But she did, in fact, write it, and now she's thinking that whoever has hacked into her computer has taken it and will publish it.
For someone who takes a lot of precautions, she also makes a lot of mistakes.
Right. It's that whole can't see the forest for the trees.
Right. Like she says, like, but I don't download anything. Oh, but I do download things and click on stuff. And it's like, what?
Yeah, I know.
If anything, like, if you were going to write something like that, if you're that paranoid, you would have it on a device that was not connected to the internet whatsoever.
Right. Like a typewriter.
Yeah.
Or just like in a journal, like a physical ass journal.
Right. But no. On a computer, it's been stolen.
Yeah. It is funny that Lynette has all of these, like, safety measures and precautions, and she does all of this wild shit every day of her life. And she makes so many mistakes. Mm-hmm. Like, we're about to encounter one. So, after she's done in her apartment, she doesn't have Skye take her back to Dr. Carroll's. Mm-hmm. She has Skye take her to Marilyn's.
Yes.
And so she's sneaking on to Marilyn's property. Marilyn's having some, like, huge fancy party for rich people.
Yeah.
And she gets caught by security. They take her to Marilyn's guest house. Heather's already there.
Yeah.
Well, then we find out that paparazzi followed Lynette to Marilyn's.
Yeah.
And she was, like, doing her sneaky with Skye in the car sitting in the floorboard.
Right.
And they still knew she was in that car, and they still followed her.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure if the paparazzi were already there because of the event Marilyn was having. Because Marilyn is she married rich. She's actually married to a man who, like, owns, like, a bunch of prisons or something.
Yeah.
Or is, like, the head of a bunch of prisons or something. So she has wealth, and she's like having a benefit for the night. So I didn't know if the paparazzi were already there because of the event, or if they actually followed her.
Yeah.
But yes, she does make the comment that somehow
the paparazzi followed you
knew
here.
that her and Heather were there or something like that. Which, and also, I guess it's not really important, but we learned when they were in the apartment, like, she's a romance writer for her job. Like, that's how she makes money doesn't leave her house. She's like a secret romance author or something, which felt random. But, I guess, I don't know if that just shows, like, no matter how cautious or detached you are from people, you still have secret wishes and desires or whatever. But I don't know, they're so random. But yeah, it was odd that she had been followed by the paparazzi or found out by the paparazzi, even though she's so careful.
Yeah.
Oh, and she brought Fine with her when they went back to the apartment.
Yeah.
She grabbed Fine, but then she also left him on the ground outside Marilyn's property.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Super weird.
Yep.
But her and Heather are there in the guest house, and Heather's basically mad that she's there. You're going to ruin this for me.
Yeah, you're blowing up my spot. I was hiding here first. And Marilyn's going to take care of me with all her money. Get out.
And Marilyn's basically like, I don't want either one of you.
Right. You're here so that you don't go over to the paparazzi and, like, ruin my party, which you've already done, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really want either one of you here, but I guess I'll let you stay for the night or what. She's pretty reluctant, which I don't blame her. They're both acting wild.
They are.
And then, I guess it's the next day, a story comes on the news, and it's Garrett P. Cannon, the officer who saved Lynn from her ordeal in the past. And he announces that new information has come to light on Lynn's case, and they're looking for her. But he doesn't say what the new information is, just that new information has come to light, and they're looking for her for questioning.
Yeah.
So that just adds another layer onto this cake of conspiracy that they're being targeted and manipulated and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Wild. And this is the point. So Marilyn, her party's over. She comes back in. Lynette's trying to convince them that some shit's going down. Mm-hmm. They're being targeted, blah, blah, blah. Marilyn and Heather just basically don't want anything to do with any of it. Mm-hmm. And Lynette's like, we're all in danger, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, shut up.
It's kind of like we need to figure out how to get Danny and Julia.
Yeah.
Like we all need to get to safety and bunker down until this blows over.
And Marilyn and Heather are just like not going for it. So it seems like Lynette just settles on the Michelle thing just to keep the three of them together for the moment.
A lot of the things that Lynette does, like, it doesn't feel like she's doing it because she cares about anybody. It's just, like, the next logical step or her next, like, safety net to, like, keep herself alive. Not to say that she doesn't... I guess I am saying that she doesn't care about them. I don't believe that she doesn't care about them, but at the same time, I don't think that she's doing things because she cares about them. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, deep down, she cares about these people, but... she is so hyper-focused and so concerned about her own survival that I think that she's really just trying to manipulate the next step to get her to the answer to what's going on and save Haven rather than really, truly, deeply caring about what's going on with everyone else.
I agree.
She just wants them all to get on board.
Right.
But
right. I agree.
But yeah, then that's when they decide to go visit. Because when Danny got arrested, they took Michelle to a hospice center. Mm-hmm. And Danny promised Michelle she wouldn't die in a hospice center, that she would get to die at home. And that's why Danny was really refusing to leave. Because Michelle is in her last days.
Yeah.
So, but they decide to go visit Michelle. I can't really remember the reason necessarily, but that's just something that Lynette... Well, and Lynette makes the comment, like, I hope Heather doesn't mention Michelle, or I hope they've forgotten about Michelle. Like, I remember reading that line, and I was like, oh, why?
Yeah.
But I think, or maybe Marilyn came up with, like, I'm going to go visit Michelle, so come with me or don't. But, I can't even remember how we get there. Or the real why. Mm-hmm. But we go, and Lynette's guilt is eating at her for leaving Julia behind. So when they're about to leave, she's like, hey, you know what? We should take Michelle with us. And again, I don't even know if this is driven because she feels bad for Michelle or wants to do it for Danny. Or if it's just, I don't know. Because she kind of goes back and forth. At first, she's just like, I just want to get out of here. And then it's like, we should take Michelle with us. It's like she's having this battle in her of like, well, I really just want to like cut and run. But, we shouldn't leave Michelle here. Like, this will alleviate my guilt a little bit.
Right.
So they decide to break Michelle out of hospice. And then they get her on the car. And then they realize she's so out of it. Like, she can't even tell them where
the ranch is.
Where the ranch is, where their home is, and none of them know. But they don't want to call Dr. Carroll because they don't know if they can trust her or she'll, whatever. So then they end up at a park and, Michelle dies. At least she doesn't die in the hospital. But it's still very sad. It's kind of like graphically descripted, like her passing, her bodily function. Like, it's just a very tragic, sad moment. Mm-hmm. And it felt out of place. It felt just horrible.
Yeah, it didn't... I was it didn't fit in the narrative of the story.
Yeah. And then, so that happens unexpectedly fine. And they were like, well, okay, now we got to figure out where the ranch is and at least take her there. And I was like, yes, that is the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And then they end up just leaving her there on a park bench next to
some old man.
Some old man who we later find out was like trying to kiss her corpse.
Yeah.
Ew. Mm-hmm. Like, you really think that's what Danny wanted? Like, thanks for taking her out of the hospice because she didn't want to die there, but she died in a park and then you just like left her body. But that was Heather's decision.
Yeah, Heather's the one that came up with that. And then Lynette's like, you know what? I'm with Heather on this one.
Yeah.
It was the weirdest thing.
She's like, yeah, we should really take her home. Yeah, we'll just leave her here. Who are you?
What is going on here?
The minute I think that, like, you're growing or, like, you know, settling back into normality and, like, catching some feelings, then you go back to, like, Dumbtown. Like, or making sporadic decisions and having no feelings whatsoever. I'm like, who are you?
Very confusing.
Yeah.
Very confusing. And now that we're still at this park, as they're attempting to get into Marilyn's SUV, Garrett P. Cannon rolls up with the police and they arrest Lynette.
Yep. Because Heather called the police.
Heather called them.
And an ambulance? She called an ambulance for the dead body and then called the police so that they would take Lynette and not her. Like she made some sort of deal.
Because Heather was wanted for her house burning down.
Right. Which she insists she didn't do. She said she passed out in the woods after a bender.
Yeah.
And wasn't even in the house or near the house when it blew up or burned or whatever.
Right. So now Lynette's in custody. And the cops are questioning her, essentially insinuating that she had a sexual relationship with Ricky Walker, her first attacker. Mm-hmm. And that's basically all they're asking her. The only question they keep asking her is, how many times did you have sex with Ricky Walker?
Yeah, they're being real gross about it.
Yes, and the way that they're conducting themselves is super, super unprofessional and would absolutely not be legal.
No. Because she's not even in a regular jail cell, right? Isn't she in like a glass box?
Yeah, I think technically it would be like a solitary confinement situation because she's not out of the cell for meal times or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't specifically say how long she's in there, but she makes a mental note of multiple meals being brought to her, so she's definitely there for longer than a day.
Yeah.
Which you can't be without being charged.
And they don't have any real evidence other than these letters that she wrote when she was a child. We find out that she was pen pals.
Mm-hmm. And this finally is when we get Lynette's story.
Yeah, we don't...
Mind you, all the way up until this point, we're 200 pages in. We have literally no idea what happened to Lynette.
None. Except for the fact that everyone throughout the book keeps telling her she's not a real final girl like the rest of them.
Right.
And so we find out why they say that is because the rest of them had to fight and or kill their attacker, whereas Lynette was saved.
Right.
Okay, but she didn't die. She played possum. She got away.
Mm-hmm. But I'm also, like, the nature of her attack, what else could she have done is the thing. Because she was literally impaled on antlers.
Yeah, this guy, they were pen pals since they were...
in 5th grade.
Kids. She doesn't know this guy. Yeah. She's just riding back and forth. A kid pouring her heart out, whatever.
To another kid.
Yeah. And then I'm assuming, I don't know at what age she stops or doesn't stop, whatever. But she's hanging out with her boyfriend. And then all of a sudden, someone dressed in a Santa suit, this Ricky guy, comes into her house, takes her, impales her up on some antlers, and then proceeds to kill and torture her family in front of her.
Yeah.
And she just has to lay there and pretend like she's dead. What else are you supposed to do?
Right. Especially because
she can't pull herself down.
She can't get off of the antlers, first of all, because I mean, if she even began to try, he would just have hit her with his axe, and that would have been it.
Yeah.
And
she survived.
Also, if she would have managed to get herself off of those antlers, she probably would have bled to death.
Yeah.
Because
it even said, I think, that they were being on the antlers is what kept her alive.
Exactly. That's what all like medical professionals say. If like you find yourself like impaled on something, the worst thing you can do is pull it out.
Right. Just leave it.
Because where it is holding your blood in. So if she would have gotten off of the antlers, she would have bled out and bled to death.
Right.
So the only way she was ever going to survive that would be to stay exactly where she was.
Yep. So,
and how are you going to fight?
You're not.
You're simply not going to fight.
No, she couldn't.
There's literally nothing she could do.
So her only option was to just hang there and pretend like she was dead.
So people using the fact that the situation she was in was literally the only option against her is cruel and mean.
Yeah. And, demeaning to her. Yeah. And she's, again, like the most unrehabilitated of all of them. Like, she can't live in the real world.
Right.
Because of it. And I don't know if it's her guilt for not acting or doing anything or what.
I do think towards the end, a little bit we get of her thinking about her little sister.
Yeah.
She and her mom.
Yeah.
But not a lot.
And her dad was an ex-police officer who was friends with Garrett, the guy that saved her.
Right.
So that's another like layer why the cops are being so mean to her or whatever, because if she is an accomplice of her first attacker, then that means she aided in the killing of a cop.
Right.
Yeah. Or whatever. But they have no proof other than these children letters written on similar stationery.
Yeah.
But that's, like Maddie said, this is when we get her story and all that stuff. And we find out that Lynette and Garrett actually had an affair at one point after he saved her. Mind you, Garrett was, I think, a married man and was very manipulative and was trying to get Lynette to do interviews and movies and kind of make money off of everything. So he's a complete scumbag trash hole.
Yeah, he was sort of operating as like her manager with all those things in the beginning. So her story was making him a lot of money.
Yeah. And when she stopped wanting to do things that made him money, he dropped her like a bad habit.
Yep.
So he's garbage.
Yep, he's the worst.
And he was a lot older than her, too.
Yeah, because she was like 18.
Yeah.
When he saved her from the second attack.
And I'm pretty sure that he was like her dad's age.
Yeah, I think he was like in his 40s for sure.
So he's yucky.
Yeah.
I think I even wrote on my note in my thing, yucky. The way that he treated her and was towards her or whatever. But
yeah, I agree. So Lynette is in her cell, and the police in this station have like taken copies of these letters between her and Ricky and pasted them like all over the walls of this cell to taunt her. They're wearing Santa hats.
Yeah.
And it's just, this is like one of the parts that I had like the biggest issue with, because you absolutely would not be able to act that way as a police officer.
Is this like a small town?
This is L.A. where they're at. They arrest her while she's still in California.
So I was going to say, it's not like they're in some remote small town, like outside of L.A.
Yeah.
Okay, then like you can't.
Because
I don't know.
This is
because you know what I mean. Like I could see where if it was a remote small town and they think they just do whatever they want, but if you're in the heart of LA, you can't just be arresting people and torturing them in a cell without any proof.
Yeah, because I think if this would have happened, if she had been like extradited back to Utah to the town where she's from, where the murders actually happened, then these antics may have been a little more like, okay, sure, this is a small town in Utah.
Right.
But not in LA.
Yeah.
Like, and this is also like current day. The level of lawsuit she could bring against these police officers is ungodly.
Oh, yeah.
Just for the Santa hats. Just the Santa hat alone.
Really?
Oh
Yeah.
my, the pain and suffering, because she's already suffering from mental health. She already has a level of like hyper paranoia and OCD. And for them to do that after all of the shit that she went through, lawsuits out the ass.
Right.
Any attorney worth their bar card would get her so much money out of that.
Oh.
Grady Hendrix. What? Please.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. And I know that we keep calling Lynette crazy, and we're not commenting on anyone who has trauma and has a severe reaction to it. It's simply just how this character is written and how it doesn't feel done properly.
Yeah, it is definitely a critique of the writing.
Yeah.
Not
mental illness as
because,
a whole.
because trauma and mental illness is not handled properly in this book.
Right.
Is really what this boils down to.
So it's that, and then the handling of the police officers.
It's just lazy. You're not doing your due diligence to understand the bare basics. Like, what are they arresting Lynette on? Are they arresting her because of her firing her gun in her apartment? Are you charging her with that?
Right.
But then Garrett eventually gets her out and says he's taking her back to Utah to face her crimes. Is she charged with those murders now based on these so-called letters that you found because of Billy Walker, who's one of her attackers?
Right. That doesn't seem fishy to you?
So is she charged? Is she not
That'd
charged?
Be thrown
What's
out
going
in court
on?
In a hot second.
What are you doing? You held her for what seems to be more than 24 hours, which is illegal, without charging her. So what's the deal here? Someone can't take someone against their will in a car to another state, quote unquote extraditing, without being charged.
And she was attacked.
By
one of the police officers.
What is this?
Who was a quote unquote fan or obsessed or something. Yeah. And he tried to choke her out or
he tried to kill her right in her cell. What is happening here?
I don't know.
None of this is making sense.
No.
If you're going to bring the legal system in, at least do it correct.
Right.
You can figure out how this would happen in a real life jail setting.
Right.
This is not it, my man.
Right. And yeah, Lynette's looking at these letters and she's like, yeah, I definitely didn't write them. And that's on different stationery. Yes, it's Holly Hobby, but it's a different style than the letters that I actually wrote.
Right.
It looks like my handwriting, but
clearly a forge.
Right. But yeah, so then she gets attacked, and then Garrett gets the idea that he's gonna, like you said, extradite her to take her to get charged wherever. Or that's what he's telling.
That's what he's telling them.
And then he decides he's gonna let her go, which again, I don't even understand why he's letting her go. Like, is it because he believes her that there's a conspiracy?
I think he does. Whenever he's letting her go, she thinks that he's gonna kill him, and he's like, Jesus, Lynette, you think I would kill you? What's going on? I'm letting you go. He's like, those are clearly forged, duh.
Right. But he's like saying all these like weird things to her.
Yeah.
I'm like, you said that to her, like you weren't under surveillance, so like why'd you say all that mean stuff?
Yeah, because he even like talked about her dad and everything.
Yeah.
It's super weird.
But he's like, yeah, so just beat me up and make it look good so I could tell him that, you got away from me for, but you gotta really convince him, that I had to take a real beating for you to get away. And she's just like, yeah, whatever, and kicks him in the nuts.
Which brings me back to the question. Is she charged with a crime?
I don't know.
Because if she's not charged with a crime, who the fuck cares where she is and how she got away from him?
Right.
Because if she's not charged with a crime, technically he's kidnapping her and he should be charged with a crime.
Mm-hmm. Who signed off on her being
extradited?
Yeah, it's like, I don't understand.
You have to have a warrant from a judge to extradite, and you only extradite if there are existing charges in another jurisdiction. Come on.
it's not like she had a warrant out for her arrest for these murders. This is just new, quote unquote, evidence that's conjecture at best.
Right. Exactly.
So.
Exactly. That's one. Where are the charges?
Right. So, but she gets away from him as he planned, but whatever.
Yeah.
And that's when she decides she's going to go get Stephanie, the newest, as we said, final girl, and
keep her safe.
Right. Because now she's with the letters, she's like, oh, the only person that knew about this was Dr. Carroll. So Dr. Carroll is the one behind all of this. So she's like, I'm going to go pick up Stephanie, protect her from Dr. Carroll. I'm going to call the other girls. We're going to bunker down somewhere and be safe.
And she also got a weird vibe because Dr. Carroll also visited her in jail, which also means that
I forgot about that.
She was in jail long enough to get a visitor.
Yeah.
So she was in jail for a few days with no charges.
Yeah.
I'm never going to get over it. So Dr. Carroll visits her and has a copy of the book.
That's right.
And so now everyone knows that Lynette wrote this book. And Lynette's like, why would she print out this book? That's way more pages than I wrote. Right. She's got a weird tone about her. And now she's like, Dr. Carroll's the one.
This seems really dramatic. Like she's doing this for show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or whatever, and Dr. Carroll's talking about how hurt she is about how she's depicted in the book. And, and Lynette's like telling herself like, oh, this is all just
performative. Basically, yeah.
Yep.
So now Lynette is trying to save Stephanie before Dr. Carroll gets to her.
Right.
So she goes to her house. She basically pretends to be a protege of Dr. Carroll, blah, blah, blah. Gets Stephanie. The parents find out, and she kidnaps Stephanie.
Yeah.
I mean, Stephanie is 18 and does go willingly, so it's not technically kidnapping, but she kind of does.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a
basically,
weird way.
yes.
So, they're out here in the winds, driving around. I don't know what makes her decide to contact Chrissy.
I don't either, other than... Does she have no one else to turn to? Because I know she tries to call some of the girls and they don't answer because they're upset about the book, but I still don't fully understand what she thinks going to Chrissy is going to accomplish.
Right.
And if she says, I can't remember what it is.
Yeah. So her and Stephanie work up this whole ruse of selling some memorabilia from Lynette's case, and Chrissy's all over it.
Right, because Chrissy used to be part of the group, and then she turned on them or whatever. She basically, Chrissy does work with the killers that are still alive. She
advocates for reducing their sentences and stuff like that.
Yeah, and she sells memorabilia from the actual murders and maybe from the movies or kind of both.
Kind of both, I think.
But they also talk about her website having real sick stuff on there. Yeah. So I don't know if we're talking bodily fluids from these killers or...
I think that is one of them.
Yeah. But they talk about how dark and messed up Chrissy is, but I don't know what led her there.
Yeah, I don't know.
We don't really get any explanation for Chrissy's motives, let alone her backstory.
Right, because we don't even really know what happened to her. So the whole route happens. They end up having to follow Chrissy to her house. Yeah,
they fake her out, don't sell her anything. They just basically sit there until they can see her so then they can follow her home. Again, I'm not sure why they think following her home is the right idea. I'm not sure what their purpose or plan is once they get to her home. I don't understand, but we follow Chrissy home.
Yeah, and so Lynette stays in the car. No, Lynette leaves Stephanie in the car and goes into Chrissy's house. This man, Keith, finds her and drags her by her hair into the house. And it's all dramatic, and Chrissy is there, and she says some weird shit about final girls and their monsters and femininity and creation and destruction and blah, blah, blah.
She's very, woo-woo spiritual about it, but it's...
Yeah, very a mystic sort of...
Mystic, yeah.
Yeah. So she kind of takes Lynette through her museum of murderabilia.
Yeah, she, like, has these rooms that are, like, either resettings of people's
Stuff.
murder
yeah.
scenes,
Yeah.
or just memorabilia. Like, she has the dress. The Marilyn one isn't it, like, a dress that Marilyn was gonna wear or something like that?
I think Marilyn did wear this dress to, like a sort of ball of some sort, like maybe debutante-ish.
Yeah, but she wasn't wearing the dress. Like, Marilyn's story is kind of odd, too, because the motive for Marilyn going to that part of Texas was odd. Like, there were grave robbers, and, like, her family was, like, really well-to-do, and, like, they didn't want that kind of scandal that, like, they didn't want to find on the news that their family member had been grave robbed or whatever. So Marilyn and her brother and, like, a few friends went down to check on her grandpa's grave or something, and that's how they ended up getting attacked by this family. Like, that whole thing seemed odd. But yeah, then she had the dress, and she has this scene of Heather's attack, which
is never described.
We're told is real jacked up, but we don't get any description either of the scene that Chrissy recreates, let alone a description of what actually happens to Heather. The only thing we see is, like, a news article that talks about how maybe there were falsified statements, or, like, things weren't as they seemed or something. But again, it's like, so is the article real? Are you trying to say Heather didn't really get attacked? But we don't get any details, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah, it really is.
Don't introduce a character from something and then not, because you can't rely on saying, oh, well, the same thing happened to her, because we're in the quote-unquote real world, and you're not giving me any indication that supernatural things really happen in this world. So you're telling me that Freddy Krueger didn't attack people in their dreams. Well, then what happened? Or in this book, the Dream King. Tell me what happened with the Dream King. And, like, okay, so this room looks real jacked up. Okay, I'm not, like, necessarily looking to read something super jacked up, but if you're going to tell me that, you got to tell me something.
Yeah, and, like, each one of the other girls, you get a blurb about what happened to them. Like, specifically what happened to them.
Yep.
Except for Heather and Chrissy. We don't...
Which are our seemingly supernatural...
The two supernatural-based ones. And it's just, like... Don't include it then if you don't have the wherewithal to convert that into a story that could have happened in real life.
Yeah.
Or if you don't want to convert it, just keep the supernatural elements and just let it ride.
Right.
Like, commit or don't use it.
Right.
Because it's glaringly obvious that you've given everybody else's backstory except for theirs.
Right.
And we all understand why.
Right. It's like, could you not think of what to adapt to their story as? You know, like, it doesn't feel intentional. It just feels missing.
Yeah. Like, with Freddy Krueger, for example, like, he's just called Freddy Krueger. And it's The Nightmare on Elm Street. Just the title, a nightmare could simply be somebody coming to kill you. It doesn't have to be supernatural.
Right.
So he could have left out the dream part of Nightmare on Elm Street and just had some guy who worked in a boiler, had burns, and had scissors on his hands.
Right. Or he could have even snuck in people's rooms and drugged them and made them hallucinate.
Yes.
And then attacked them or something. But just, nothing? You're just going to say...
We're spitballing.
It's the quote-unquote Dream King, but you're going to tell... And she turned to drugs to get over what happened to her. And you're going to tell me that it was horrific and sick and twisted, but you're not going to tell me anything about it.
Yeah. You have no qualms about telling us that Lynette was hung from antlers.
And, like, her family was tortured and all that stuff. So it's like, so what?
With an axe. That's gruesome.
So what happened to... I think one of them even got, like, decapitated.
I think
you
her
know,
mom.
Or some, like, some gross details. And if you know anything, like I said, about Silent Night, Deadly Night, it's even grosser than that. So, but, yeah, like, it's not like you just alluded to everyone's stories and just assume that everyone's seen those movies. You your reference is for movie buffs going, oh, I know what that's based on. But you still said, oh, this is what happened to this person.
Yeah.
It's up to the knowledge of the reader to go, oh, I know what that's based on. But you didn't expect them to have that knowledge. Mm-hmm. You said, here's a character, here's their story, here's their killer, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. You didn't do that with Chrissy and Heather, and I find that really frustrating.
Yeah, super frustrating.
But sorry, I hung us up really far. We're going through the museum of Chrissy's craziness. And again, I don't understand her
motives.
What led her here.
Yeah, we don't know anything about Chrissy. So
other than she's into helping and hanging out with killers and is real twisted.
Yep, she is. So they're going through a museum, and Chrissy actually has emails that kind of like unravel some of this shit. So Lynette's like, let's get to the emails, babe. Let's get to the emails. And Christy's like, look at my collection.
Right.
And
she's like, I'll look at your collection. Yep. Take me to the emails.
Cool. So we do eventually get to the emails. And so Chrissy was acting kind of as the middleman here, where this person whose moniker is Orchomenos.
Oh. It's like
Orchomenos?
Orchomenos menus? Like, I don't know.
Orchomenos? I don't know.
My brain was like, like I said, I read it Orco menus, and I was like, no, that can't be right.
I think I read it Orchomenos.
That makes a lot more sense and sounds a lot more ominous.
I don't know. Either way, it sounds Greek. It sounds Greek.
The way you pronounce it sounds perfectly right. That's why I'm saying my ding dong brain was like, sure.
It's
sure.
Yeah. Well, there it is. So this person, quote unquote, is emailing for like quotes for artwork from Billy Walker, who is Lynette's second attacker, the brother of Ricky Walker. Mm-hmm. So they're sending these emails back and forth about artwork and price, but they all have these like sequence of numbers at the bottom of the emails. So Chrissy obviously catches on, and it signals to a book, The Diary of Anne Frank, because every jail has a copy, and it's basically they are planning this like letter thing with Lynette. So there's the letters and the forged ones and all of this other stuff and blah, blah, blah. And eventually Chrissy's like, when I looked up the computer, the address, the IP, whatever it is, it's Dr. Carroll's, basically.
Yeah.
And Lynette's like, got him. Knew it.
Yep. Knew it.
Friggin' knew it. So Lynette's like, all right, well, that's all I need.
Great, have a good day.
I'm going to be going now. And then they hear Keith, which is Chrissy's boyfriend, who apparently is also a murderer.
Yeah.
He's found Stephanie.
Yeah.
And he's like bloodied her up. And he's ready to flay her.
Yeah.
Skin her.
Yep. He's ready to,
And Chrissy's like, I'm going to give him Stephanie.
Yeah.
And Lynette's like, maybe not.
Right.
Though.
She's like, no, she's a final girl like us. She's
with us.
Yeah, she has her own monster, you know, that she's already been claimed by another monster. Like, he can't have her because, like we said, Chrissy has these weird rules of a final girl and her monster and her killer and blah, blah, blah.
It does seem like at this point, Lynette is trying to, like, appeal to Chrissy's kind of, like, psychosis a little.
Yeah.
And Chrissy's like, no, I think I'm going to let him have her.
Yeah.
This one's fine.
Yeah. He's like, she's a monster anyway. And she's like, no, she's not a monster. She's a final girl. Like, don't do this.
Yeah. And so Lynette's like, you know what? Fuck it. She runs out and gets in her car and just runs into the house.
Yeah.
Basically, she kills Chrissy, I guess. I mean, she thinks she does.
Yeah.
And so she gets Stephanie. They get in the car. Keith is still like,
ambling after him.
Coming after him. They finally get the car started and they're out of there.
Yeah.
So.
Long story short, they get away.
They get away. And they head to like a hotel. And at the hotel is when Lynette, I don't know if she's like going through her bag or whatever, but she finds the comic from PAX.
Yeah.
And she's reading the comic and realizes that Pax has drawn basically that Skye is a monster.
Yeah. Well, before that, she calls Skye to tell him that his mom isn't safe and that he needs to get the other final girls and they need to go somewhere else away from Dr. Carroll.
Right.
And then I think she even calls Julia or something is like, yeah, if you guys go somewhere else, you don't even have to tell me. You guys just need to go somewhere else. Dr. Carroll's not safe. Get her kids to safety too. And then after that, yes, she finds the comic. And it's basically Skye is the mom. It's like detailing everything, like the sniper shooting and the different stuff, which has barely just happened.
Right. And what's also weird that you brought up that in some of like the beginning before it gets to like the different like sniper shootings, house on fire, blah, 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 it shows like Pax and Skye interacting and Lynette's like evaluating these because she's like, you know, read so many things.
Yeah, she makes a comment earlier on that she like looks at the art of kids to look for future psychopaths or whatever, which again was like a weird thing to tell us, but it's like, okay.
Sure.
So yeah, she's psychoanalyzing this comic book.
She is. And she's like, okay, this element of this drawing points to abuse. This element of this drawing points to possibly sexual abuse. And blah, blah, blah. And what's so weird is that never comes up again.
No. It goes from that to then Skyman does this and Skyman hates the final girls and Skyman does that. You know, it's like, but it's just like she does a psychoanalysis and it's never mentioned again. It's like, so was Pax abused by Skye? Was Pax abused by someone else?
Yeah, was Skye abused when he was young and then also abused Pax?
And I'm sorry, Dr. Carroll, are you not looking at this comic book that your child is selling to other people? Because he originally tried to sell it to her for like $5 or something.
Yeah.
He's giving these things out willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Have you not looked at any of your kids' art? Like, let's assume that this one's a new edition because it's got the shooting and stuff like that. That's recent. You can't tell me that the other ones don't depict a similar undertone.
Yeah, this is likely not isolated.
So, where the heck are you, Dr. Carroll?
Yeah, it's very strange. It was a very strange element, and
again, not going back to that and being like, oh, we found out that Skye did this or this or this to Pax, or their mom did this or this or this, or oh, their dad, and that's why their mom wasn't with something to describe these elements that she's calling out as, oh, this is this is this. It's like you're gonna say it, but again, he says things, the author says things, but then doesn't expand on them.
It's very, the way plot device is working here is so clunky. Like, the comic is very clearly a plot device. I mean, you have to have plot devices in a story. We've talked about this. You have to, because you have to move the story forward, no matter what. But the way you're supposed to write them is to where that you don't see the seams. You don't see where the author is transitioning into something else. It just happens and you're just in the story. So plot devices are supposed to be seamless. In here, we're told that she looks in child art to look for signs of future psychopaths. We get child art. Child art tells us about psychopaths.
Yep.
And it's never addressed as far as any implication as to what's happened to Pax. We don't revisit it. We don't have any exposition about Skye or Pax at all, period, after this.
Yeah.
So the comic sets us up to tell us who the real killer is, and then it's gone. It's never thought of. It's never brought up. Nothing. So you're just left with this 8-year-old child who's seemingly been abused, and nothing is ever done about it.
No. It's like there are repeated holes in the story that's like, this isn't fill in the blank. This isn't for me to color with my imagination. You just left gaping holes in your story.
Yeah.
That, frankly, I just find frustrating.
Right. Because the whole idea of Sky being the killer is, based on what the comic says, is he hates final girls because they take his mom away from him. Mm-hmm. Which has absolutely nothing to do with Pax being abused. These two don't seem to be connected at all, but they're in the same comic book.
Right.
He could have just done the comic as Sky Man killing final girls.
Right. Yeah, I don't know why we made the note that, the open mouth of the scared Pax or this symbolizes, it's like, you didn't do anything with it, so why did you tell it to me?
Yeah.
Other than to, like, make me go, ugh.
Yeah. Is it just simply a device making us hate Sky even more?
Right. I don't know.
Yeah. These are questions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now Lynette and Stephanie are on the road heading back to LA. They're trying to kind of head off the issue. Because Julia tells them that Dr. Carol is taking them all to her retreat.
Right.
Sagefire. And Lynette is hoping that they didn't get Sky, but she doesn't know, and nobody's answering their phones, and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So they just decide to head to Danny's ranch.
Right.
So I think Stephanie
looks it up. Because Danny used to help with injured horses or something. She had a program for horses, and she looked up that and found Danny's address that way.
Right. So they get to the ranch, and they see that Danny is basically burning all of her stuff out of grief at the loss of her wife.
Right.
And she's mad at Lynette about the book, and they fight, and Lynette's begging her, blah, blah, blah. And Danny's like, well, they're on their way to Camp Red Lake. And eventually the three of them head there.
Right.
So they're driving over. They're basically pulling in onto the road that the camp is at.
Yeah.
And Danny's like, gotta pee.
Yeah, I'm gonna pee before we get into this action.
Right.
You know what? That's smart.
Sure.
Before I'm about to clobber some killer people or be running or whatever, let me empty my bladder.
Right.
Remember, we're middle-aged or elderly at this point, depending on which character we're talking about. So
right. So she pulls over, she gets out, she goes into the bushes to pee, and all of a sudden, Stephanie just hits Lynette in the back of the head with a sledgehammer.
What?
And Lynette falls out of the truck onto the ground.
I will admit, this surprised me.
I also did not suspect Stephanie.
You and I had suspicions, like, early on. You and I were like, it's Dr. Carol, it's Sky, or Lynette's doing this herself and isn't unaware of it, or something. Like, those were our top 3 theories.
Yeah,
so
our top 3 was, it's not real. Uh-huh. It's not real / it's Lynette. Mm-hmm. It's Dr. Carol, or it's Sky. Or it's Dr. Carol and Sky.
Yeah. So we were right.
We were right.
For that. But yeah, part. Stephanie, I was surprised.
I was, absolutely. So Danny comes out of the bushes. Stephanie runs her over with the car.
She hits her with the car too. Goes flying. Yeah. I'm not trying to laugh. Just the way that it was depicted in the book. It just
it seemed outlandish,
semi-comical. Outlandish.
Yeah. So Danny gets back up, and she's hand-to-hand combating with Stephanie, and
with there's a shotgun in between
involved,
them,
and Lynette's just laying on the ground playing possum.
Yeah.
And
it said that the truck rolled over her legs at one point. It literally says, but she just says she didn't feel it because the pain in her head was so hard. If that truck ran over her legs, they would be dust.
Broken, at the very least.
I would imagine. So that part is unrealistic because, eventually she gets back up.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's fighting with Danny, and eventually I think Danny's like down or disappears or
Yeah, I think she like disappears, and then Stephanie
again or something.
Yeah, Stephanie thinks Lynette's dead.
Yeah,
and
she like spits on her open eye, which I was like, ugh.
Yeah, and so Stephanie like gets in the truck and heads to the camp.
Right.
And then Lynette gets up, and
at first we think, I mean, there's a chapter ending where it's like, okay, and I'm dying or I'm dead. I was like, oh snap, whose perspective are we switching to now? From here on out, I liked the book. Like, you know,
yeah, I mean,
I'm not saying it was it was a 5. It was amazing after this. It became more enjoyable after this.
This is where the book is the most coherent.
Yes.
And this is like the last few chapters. Mm-hmm. So it's the most coherent here because you have a specific like goal for this, for Lynette.
Yeah.
I guess it could be argued that she has a specific goal through the whole book, but that is not clear.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But here, she knows who the perp is, she knows where everyone is, and where she needs to get to.
Right.
So it feels so much more coherent.
Yeah.
And
she's finally deciding to fight back.
And she's so much more focused now. So she gets up, she gets to the camp, she finds Julia in a closet, and so they get out and they're on their way to the panic cabin because Lynette knows about it. They find Danny. They find everyone else. They're all in the panic cabin.
Yeah.
And Lynette's like...
That's kind of a reveal, too. It's like they get to a cabin. This person in black gear, covered, you know, shooting a gun is chasing after them. They get into the cabin, and it's like, this thing's made of wood. It's like, not for long. And then she, you know, pulls a lever, and then all this metal... comes over the windows, and it's like, oh, actually, there's a layer of metal between the wood. You know, Adrian had this one made so that I would come. Honestly, I would think that all of the cabins would be made out of this.
Right.
As healed as Adrian would be, I would still think that she'd be like, I'm taking precautions.
Yeah, I agree.
So I would think every cabin should be a panic cabin.
Yeah.
But the panic cabin was cool.
Yeah. And so at this point, Lynette's like, well, I need to be a decoy, so she, like, shimmies out the trapdoor and runs out, and, you know, the killer follows her, and I don't know where Stephanie is at this point, because at this point it's just Skye in tactical gear chasing her.
Yeah, I can't remember where Stephanie is, actually.
I don't know. But she's running, she gets through, like, a wellness barn, and through all these rooms that are very heavily described for no reason. And
yes, I thought that whole mazy labyrinth cabin was overly complicated unnecessarily.
How many doors are in this barn?
And I forgot the purpose of it. I was like, why are there so many? Why is this room designed this way? It goes from one to the next, and I forgot about that.
Yeah, it felt like David Bowie was gonna come out at some point. So
dance, magic dance, you know.
Exactly. So we finally get to what seems to be the end of the doors. And it's just Lynette and Skye, and he's got her cornered and whatever.
Oh yeah, at one point in the cabin, Heather makes some comment that she's gonna lay down and she needs quiet so she can go to sleep and do her thing. So then I'm like, oh, are we finally going to get the explanation of like her story and what she thinks happened? Or what, you know, no. She just makes that comment. They're all like, okay, you do you, boo-boo. And then, and then Lynette, you know, goes out the trap door. And then Heather shows up and like helps save her with like the back of a toilet and like hits it on Skye's head or whatever and incapacitates him.
Yeah. And it's like, all right, well, cool.
And is that when Stephanie shows up?
Yeah, that's when Stephanie shows up. She's like got a gun to Heather's head. And
to like the back of her neck or whatever, the back of her head.
And she starts like talking and like saying all these things, and her and Skye's whole thing was kind of like using guns because none of the other monsters used guns, right? Yeah. So there's this whole thing about blasting them with this gun, which I thought was weird.
Yeah, like they had this whole thing the whole time. It was just like, knives and machetes and sledgehammers and, all that stuff. Like, no final girl could survive it if the killer would have actually used a real weapon and used a gun and just shot them all down. And, it's this whole, stance they're taking.
Which is such a weird one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're, talking to Stephanie, and Stephanie is going on about how she met Sky and...
online or in a chat room or something?
Yeah. And Lynette is basically he groomed you. You're just another victim of a man.
Mm-hmm.
You're not in control.
Yep.
You're just a victim, and you'll only be a footnote, and...
He'll get all the glory of all these murders.
Yep.
And all that stuff, and
it kind of, makes Stephanie, hesitate a little, and that's when Lynette, attacks and overpowers her.
Right. Because she's like, you should just kill Sky now while you have the chance, because he's gonna kill you.
That's what he would do.
Yeah.
And she obviously doesn't. And so they basically just, detain Stephanie until the police come and take them. And that's, the final showdown.
Yeah.
And then we, flash forward to Lynette getting out of the hospital, I think, and they go visit Stephanie in prison.
Yeah, basically we just kind of catch up with everyone. But before we move on to that, do you want to talk about, what it kind of made you think of, that, altercation at the end, or... Yeah, you don't want to talk about it.
Well, it made me think of Scream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fourth Scream.
Yes. I wasn't sure which Scream it was, but the fourth one, obviously,
Yeah.
But the one with Emma Roberts, as soon as, this scene happened, I was like, oh, this is the Scream with Emma Roberts.
Yeah.
Because, she's the victim for the whole film, and then at the end we find out it's her and her male accomplice, and she does kill him.
Yes, I was going to say the difference is that she didn't really have any love for her male accomplice,
right,
while he thought that she did.
Right.
But Stephanie and Sky, or at least Stephanie has feelings, I believe, towards Sky. Yes. Who knows what Sky thinks, because we don't know. We don't ever hear from him. No. He's behind tactical gear. I don't think we get a word from him. Mm-mm. Not a peep.
Yeah.
Not a monologue of, you bleeps took my mom away from me, and, you were always more important to her, so I'm taking you away from her,
Yeah.
And yeah, Stephanie wanted to be the final girl, and was going to be, they were going to be famous, and,
Yeah.
I don't know. But yes, I can see where they would make that comparison, because, that was that female character's
ambition. She wanted to be the final girl and not Sydney.
Right. She wanted to have her, basically, her 15 minutes of fame, or she was probably hoping for a lot longer than that. But
right.
Because she was going to get away with it. That was the difference. Stephanie was clearly going to be... Yeah, she wasn't going to be the victim. She was going to be a perpetrator, whereas... The girl in Scream 4 almost got away with it.
She straight up almost did. And that was a much bigger, plot twist to me.
Yes. I was going to say, spoiler alert. Maybe, but it's been out for a while, so.
I did suspect her male classmate, though, in Scream 4. Mm-hmm. I was like, is that the guy?
The Culkin brother? You suspected him?
I did.
He surprised me, actually. Honestly, I think I'm going to say that one surprised me the most. I didn't see either one of them coming. I didn't know who was going to be the killer, but that one shocked me the most.
Yeah.
Truthfully. That one is one that a lot of people dog on. I freaking love that one.
I thought it was fun.
It's so good.
Yeah. But yeah, I did suspect the Culkin.
Yeah. I feel bad calling him that.
The Culkin?
The Culkin.
Yeah.
It's not a sign of disrespect. Those Culkin brothers are good actors, okay?
Yeah, they are. But yeah, so we catch up with all of our people. Yeah. Danny's now in a wheelchair as well, and Julia's trying to help her adjust.
So those two are kind of bonding, but then also, because Danny, when she was burning everything, was like, I don't want to be alone. She was going to end her life.
She was on really close to harming herself at that point. So.
But Lynette asks Danny if she can move in with her, you know, because she wants to live her life differently. She doesn't want to live in a cage.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to be a plant in a tiny pot with its roots bound, because we find that Marilyn decided to, you know, she found Lynette's plant and she decided to plant it in the ground, and it's flourished and grown and actually is like a pepper plant or something. And Marilyn makes the comment, you know, like
it needed room.
Right.
Yeah.
So Lynette wants to change her life, and so she goes to live with Danny on this farm, and she finds the open space calming and peaceful, but she still feels safe because if anyone's coming, she can see them from a mile away. And so her and Danny have companionship. Julia and Danny have that bond of, you know, that shared
experience.
Kind of. And, you know, Julia's kind of helping Danny cope and learn how to live her life this new way. And then Marilyn, I don't know,
I think Lynette actually stayed with Marilyn for a time before she moved to the ranch.
Yeah, that's probably very possible. And, I think you're right. And Marilyn's just warmer towards the girls too, like wanting to, I don't know, help them all, or just has warmer feelings towards them. They don't know where Heather is. No, none of us know what the heck happened to Heather.
Yeah, she just...
Maybe her powers worked. I don't...
Maybe.
Know.
Yeah.
But... Yeah. And then they all have their final girl support group meeting at the jail with Stephanie.
Yeah.
Whether she wants it or not, because she still,
yeah,
I'm assuming, has hard feelings towards all of them.
Yeah.
But weirdly, after having this group for 16 years, these women actually feel like a family. Mm-hmm. Rather than bickering strangers who want nothing to do with each other.
Right. So that's basically the end.
Yeah. We don't really know what happened to Dr. Carol.
No.
I think maybe she's mentioned, but it's so brief, I don't even remember.
Yeah, it's basically just that she's stepping back from her profession or whatever.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the end of the book. So,
whoop, whoop.
Before we get into our final thoughts, we already talked about the adaptation that HBO is going to be doing. IMDb says it's going to be produced by Charlize Theron.
Okay.
So, well, they got a big name there.
Yeah. I mean, she's into that dark stuff. She did Monster, and then she did that one book adaptation. Is it Dark Places or something like that?
I don't know.
Was it a Gillian Flynn book? I can't remember, but she did like a, you know, mystery murder thriller thing, and so that's interesting that she's producing. But again, like, it didn't surprise me when you told me that. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And our next novel is dun, dun, dun,
Two Towers.
Yay!
Yay! We're getting out of the horror genre. We did 2 in a row.
Oh, we did. I didn't even think about that.
Well, these were supposed to be October books, I think.
Oh,
and then our schedule kind of got pushed around because life and
books.
Books don't take an hour to read.
Yeah,
they
take
like a movie is
while.
3 hours. Books you gotta like consume and all that stuff. So, but this one ended up kind of being a happy accident that our main character was a Christmas-themed murder victim.
True.
So it worked out.
It worked out perfectly.
But the Two Towers is definitely going to be a refreshing, nice turn from...
A true palate cleanser.
Yeah, from the dark place we are stepping out. Dark in subject matter and just not as pleasant as hoped for.
Yeah.
Book.
Yep. So big excited for that.
Yeah.
All right. So what are your final thoughts?
Okay. When I typed this up, like I said, I was actually just like speak dictating. And this book just, I don't know, put my brain into place. I was just like, this is, I don't know. And when because I messaged you immediately after I finished the book, I was kind of on like a excited high of like the last fourth of the book. I was like, that was a lot more exciting and more satisfying. But the more I thought about it and the more we talked about it, like my rating's definitely gone down. Because I think I was like, maybe it'd be the 3 or I don't know, maybe a 3.5. I'm not sure, but it's definitely not. It's definitely on par with Verity. I would say there are things about this that I liked, and there were aspects of it that were enjoyable and fun for me, like sussing out who was based on what movie, especially since I do like some slasher films and stuff like that. And it's obviously not for the violence against women thing for me. It's for the victory of the women at the end, getting away and overcoming their attempted killers. But yeah, in the chapter titles were funny to me because like the sequels like go on forever. Like it was like the end and then it was like a new beginning and so just there were certain parts of it that were clever in their reference, but the story as a whole just it had too many holes. It I don't know. I can read my nonsense because it's just it was kind of super funny to me. I was like, this rating thing just isn't working for me anymore. What are the rules? What are the stipulations? Who makes them? Can we just say, I really hated it, I didn't like it, I liked it, I really liked it, or I loved it? Numbers feel inadequate at this point. Because it's like on Goodreads, like I've read, like, what'd we say? I think in the very beginning, it's like 1 is I didn't even finish it. 2 is I hated it. 3, I liked it. 4, I really liked it. And 5, I loved it. But it's like, there are things that I'm like, I would give that a 1. But it's like, but if the rule is, oh, I didn't finish it. It's like, well, I finished it. So I guess I have to give it a 2, just. Yeah. So it's like, at this point, I don't even want to necessarily go, I will give a number. But like, yeah, I just want to say whether I hated something or I liked something.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough.
Yeah, but I would say this is on par with Verity for me. There were aspects of it that were readable and like made you want to keep reading, but at the same time there was just too many plot holes. So it's a 2.5 for me. I feel like being a person who enjoys slasher movies, I had a lot higher hopes that this book was going to be more enjoyable, maybe even have like kind of a good humor to it or something. But yeah, like I said, I enjoyed the parts that's like I could recognize the movies that they were referencing, but I had trouble relating to Lynn for most of the book. And I just think that, the parts that were left vague, they just left the book feeling left open and empty. And I feel bad saying this, but it felt lazy. As if like the author didn't know how to describe something, so they just didn't.
Yeah.
And I didn't get why Chrissy became what she became. That whole scene just felt like it didn't even fit in the book. Like it just felt really off. I felt like the chapters and the information was all written in a really strange order. It could be that it was just Lynette's perspective that I didn't care for, but it feels more like it was the writing style. I do feel like the story has potential to be a good story. It's just the structure just wasn't there, and it felt kind of messy. I am a sucker for a good ending, so I did like how things wrapped up and how Lynette got closure for her guilt and in not like fighting back or saving her sister and all that. But I liked that everyone kind of grew together and because they finally, wanted to help each other rather than just themselves, but I don't know. Like I said, there was potential for it to be better, but unfortunately it just didn't fully hit the mark for me. So
yeah,
there's my overly complicated review. I just really wanted to like it.
I am not the I've seen most of the slashers, so I was able to pick up most of the references. I'm not like an aficionado on it or anything. But
yeah, you did a great job.
I also had higher expectations for this. I expected it to be more camp. Which, a weird thing is I watched a few TikTok reviews on this book today, and it's about half and half. People not liking it, people liking it. And one girl described that she didn't like it because it was too silly and campy. And I was like, I got 0 camp and 0 silly.
Yeah.
Outside of the chapter titles
Yeah.
and the title of the book itself, I got 0 camp.
Maybe it was those random thoughts she thought were silly.
Right. That we interpreted as Lynette's mental unwellness.
Yes. But I can't think of what else she would consider camp.
None
other
of-
than the fact that they use the word final girl 100 times.
Yeah, which really just seems like bad writing and not camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was expecting it to be a lot more campy, a lot more fun, and not so anxiety-inducing.
Yeah.
And not in the good horror/thriller way. There's a very specific feeling that like horror movies and books give you that is enjoyable fear. This was not fear. I was never afraid. None of this was horror. None of it was scary. It was just what I just felt like
Unsatisfied.
so it's very hard to describe.
Yeah.
Like, it made me want to, like, hunch my shoulders. Like, thinking about the feeling that the writing was giving me was just very, like, ooh.
Yeah.
Why? Every part of it, especially until the last, like, final showdown, the whole thing just made me, like, what is this? The whole vibe was just not it. Originally, when I first finished, I was like, I can probably give this a 2, which is exactly what I did with Verity. And then thinking it through, talking it through, it's a 1 for sure for me. Which I also did with Verity like 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. I switched my rating to a 1.
Yeah.
Because when you sit in the story for a while and you think about it, I'm like, that's a 1 for sure.
Yeah.
And 1 for me cannot be DNF because I'm not going to DNF a book.
Right.
For sure, I'm not.
Right.
So.
And I don't feel like you can fairly rate something if you don't finish it. It's just like, it didn't interest me, no rating.
Right.
I couldn't in good conscience give something a 1 unless I didn't finish it because I did not enjoy it. But if it was just like I got kind of bored or what just wasn't for me, then I wouldn't rate it.
Right. So 1 for me is not I didn't finish in my brain. 1 for me is there's no option to give this 0, so the only option I have is to give this a 1. It's like that unpleasant for me. Aside from it being generally unenjoyable, just as written, which is really the only reason you need to not like a book, is that it's not enjoyable. But technically, it took way too long to even know that our POV character's name was Lynette.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even know her name is Lynette for chapters.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out, I was like, I think it was one of those article chapter header things that it was naming all the people. And I was like, I think we're reading from Lynette's perspective.
That's exactly what happened.
And then we found out. But yeah, I totally forgot about that. But yeah, we don't even know who we're seeing through.
So that was frustrating. And then aside from just not even really knowing who you're following for a while, you don't know her story for hundreds of pages.
And she's getting dogged on by the other people and you don't understand why.
Yeah, and it's just there's no reason to not tell us.
Right. And you don't know what has led her to be so paranoid.
She has so many different neuroses that are active constantly in her brain, and it not only do we not understand why, we have 0 context for any of her behavior.
Right.
So we can't like Lynette. We can't relate to Lynette for more than half of this book. And whenever it's not like he's holding back her story to reveal at a specific time because it leads to something else. The impact of her story would have been no different if he would have moved it up.
Right. The letters were the like,
that was
did she have a relationship with him? Which is answered fairly quickly. But
right.
Whether you told us what happened to her earlier on or like right before the letters like he did, I think it would have been
the effect
more impactful actually if we would have known what happened to Lynette earlier.
Yeah, I agree.
Rather than throwing it all at once at us, and then we're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you can't. It did not give us time to appreciate what happened to her and then digest what the letters are implying in relation to her story because we just got her story. So there's no reason to bury the lead like that. It narratively a real bummer.
I feel like in group when we went from person to person airing their BS grievances, we could have gone, hey, Heather, she's whining about this. Her story is la 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 la.
Yeah.
Marilyn's response was, duh. Marilyn's story is la 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 la. You know?
Yeah. He could have set it up, because that's really, that first scene of group is the only scene of group we get until the end. He could have set it up the way that they do, like, AA.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Maddie, and I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
He could have set it up like that to be kitschy and play on that support group thing.
Right.
But he, for whatever reason, decided to bury the lead so hard that by the time we get to the lead, I'm so tired of Lynette that she's irredeemable at this point.
Yeah.
I'm not on no one's side.
Yeah.
So it's just, that's crazy. Aside from that, I obviously had the issues with how he represented the legal system so inaccurately when a smidgen of research would have cleared all of that up. I didn't love what we talked about, the representation of Adrian. Didn't love that. Thought that was a real miss on the only person of color in the entire book, killing them immediately.
Right. And then making comment.
Making the comment and then using her death to catapult Lynette. Not good. And just the way that he writes women in general.
Yeah.
Not good.
And it's interesting because I think he does make comments about some people interpreting slasher movies as being, anti-women or women being oppressed by men. And so I thought that some of his comments were interesting, that he was writing about the misrepresentation or mistreatment of women when he was a man writing from a woman's perspective. I just thought that was an interesting choice.
I agree, because on one hand, you want to embrace the idea that maybe he's trying to understand women, because it is true that women move through the world in a different way. Women are more likely to be attacked by people they know and people they don't know. You do see that female self-defense stuff is super hot right now. I can get online right now and buy a suitcase full of super cute self-defense items so that you can get out of a car, break a window, cut a seatbelt, all in like awesome, cool colors, because it's a thing. But you have to do it right.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, oh, I want to write this book about women.
Right. And I'm not saying that men can't write women, because there are men that do it well.
I agree. I'm not against a man writing from a female perspective.
It's just the way was a miss.
None of these women have personalities outside of what happened to them at all. And they're all like a very specific stereotype. Like, you have the addict, you have the rich girl, you have the lesbian, and then you have the paranoid crazy one, and then you have the person of color.
And I think that was even mentioned, now that you say that, there's the cheerleader, I think they mentioned the stereotypes or whatever somewhere in there, but I can't even remember.
Which is interesting that he's calling out what he himself is doing.
Yeah.
Like, you're aware that these things exist, but you're falling into the trap.
Yeah.
You're unable to think outside of that. Sure, if you want to start off making them the stereotypes, but then you have to subvert the stereotype in order to make the point that you think you're making.
Yeah.
You can't just write them as the stereotype and think that you're being progressive.
Right. And I think it was Chrissy that was like saying, oh, well, this one's this and this one's this and da-da-da. Like acting as if she was kind of part of the story and then really having no impact at all.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
It was just so strange. And the female relationships, that's not how women relate to each other.
Especially if they've been in group for 16 years. Like,
yeah.
I know that some families grow apart, but for them to be so desensitized to each other's
They're
feelings.
so mean to each other.
And so unaware of their own selves. Like, it's just like, Dr. Carroll, you're doing a bad job, man. That's why I think it was so satisfying for me to see them in the end, because then they were bonding and making relationships. And I was like, finally, this is what they should have been like in the beginning.
Yeah.
With each other. They've been each other's support for 16 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just really poorly done.
Yeah.
The premise, the idea.
Yes.
Could have been really strong.
Agreed.
That's
why I picked it up.
Yeah,
I was like,
exactly.
Heck yes, this is my wheelhouse. This is yes.
The premise is.
And I'm sorry I made you read it.
No, I love reading books that I hate.
I know.
It makes my my editor's mind work so much harder, because once it doesn't take a long time within a book for me to feel like I don't like this, and then it kicks in, and I'm looking for every single thing that is wrong with it.
Yeah.
But if there's a book that comes across that I super enjoy, I will ignore all of that, which is an element of good writing. If you can write a story that is compelling enough that your reader ignores little errors and little plot holes, success.
Yeah.
I mean,
we've dissected Harry Potter. Are there like little funky little tiny baby plot holes somewhere? Sure.
Guess who ignores them every single time? Me.
Yeah.
I can admit they're there.
Yeah.
But I ignore them because they don't bother me, because the story itself I love.
Right.
The same with like Throne of Glass. I love the story, so I ignore all of the shit that's wrong.
Right.
Because it makes me feel the feels that you want whenever you're reading a book. Yeah. It's that high stakes, that high emotion.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect. It
exactly.
just has to touch your mind, touch your heart. It has to
has to get you.
Yeah, exactly.
And if it doesn't, it's on the chopping block for literally every single thing.
Right.
Sorry.
Yep.
I am admitting to my own bias. And I will continue to do that. So. Yeah. But everyone does.
Yeah.
Everyone is going to ignore all the bad stuff about the things they love. That is just nature.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
No questions asked. It's bad.
We could probably go on for much longer. We've already gone on way longer than I think we expected.
I agree. It always happens.
Just please rate and review us, and please, I hope that you would be much kinder to us than we were to this book. But I mean, you feel how you feel.
You feel how you feel. Yeah. You know. We're doing this all ourselves, so we need at least some props for that.
Yeah.
The writing, the reading, the recording, the editing, the publishing, the socials, we do it. All of it. Music, artwork, it's us.
That's us. Can you imagine? I have someone else read it for me and then tell me about it, and then I talk about it.
Oh, God. That would be so shitty.
Yeah.
I could not. I would have to, like, punish myself. I would have to, like, get rid of all my books. You know what? You don't deserve these. You can't have these books anymore.
Right. Revoked.
Your book card is revoked.
Yep. Well, until next time, please take care of your plants and read books.
Okay,
All right,
bye.
bye.
Wait, where is it? Oh, there it is. Sometimes my cursor, like, disappears.